Finance Committee to order. Thanks, everybody. Good to see everybody. It's in Mark, I think, right? And Joe. It's in the Blues Brothers. Okay, so and then, so we are, they'll show up in tandem soon enough. All right, so I think, I had it up, sorry, folks. So a pretty, good sized agenda, mainly, kind of going through and first looking at the guidance for FY24 budget. Then we'll vote on the warrant articles for November town meeting. We'll discuss the financial forum and other meeting agendas, and then we'll approve the financial forum minutes from 9/21. The one thing that we didn't have on there, and we can do it quickly just to kind of get us rolling. We didn't have liaison reports out here, so it might be just worth it to kind of go around and see if anyone has anything that they need or would like to share. I'll start kind of on my left. I'll start with you, Joe. Anything on your side?
Nothing to report.
Mary Ann?
Well, I guess this could be a joint select board and RAC liaison. So RAC completed their work on October 12th. The select board should be taking final votes on October 25th, the day before the financial forum. Hopefully I can be there to just report the votes, and I've prepared a memo on that, which will be going into the warrant, and I can present it at the forum, or we can include it in the forum. The memo has, I think I sent just you it at least has a pie chart and a list, and maybe people don't need to see the memo part, but they can see the last couple of parts.
I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I read it a couple times. It's fantastic, really. I mean, and again, I've said this, kind of to different folks. The stuff that you guys have done has been outstanding.
Well, what's kind of funny, and Fidel maybe noticed this too, if you looked at the pie chart on my memo, I said, except for, premium pay and senior as thing, we ended up almost at the buckets that you proposed at the start.
Almost like he knows what he's doing. It's almost like he knows what he's doing.
But we organically got that way though.
Yep.
Like Jeff would agree, we heard a lot of presentations, we looked at survey data, and just the way the allocations came out percentage wise, I thought was fair. We're not gonna please everybody. And at least we don't have to stand up at town meeting and explain it and justify it, because that would be a night. We had a dozen meetings, I think over 10 months, that people could have come and spoke at any time.
No, the volume of requests and presentations and, kind of collating that, and then, kind of taking all of that across 9 committee members. And everyone, kind of was actively participating, shared good ideas. It was really, it was one of those things that brings a town together. I'm sure it was, that might have been part of the spirit of why, why it was done.
I think there's gonna be some things that will be standing, like the Birch Meadow project.
Yep.
There'll be things we don't see, but I'll benefit from, like lead remediation, but also the trails work. I mean, such a small percentage went to some of our town boards, but I feel like it made a difference, and we've also, we've all certainly become aware of issues. Now I'm gonna advocate for the town forest people who do all the boardwalk whenever I can, because they're doing all this stuff for us for free.
Well, I think that's the huge benefit of this is that, for the folks that did pay attention, that it gave everyone a voice and everyone a chance to, to kind of speak to what they do. And so hopefully it's, I do think there's momentum that's created from this that hopefully should carry through to,
Yeah, and I think it's also, I don't know how many ad hoc committees the town has had, but this was one that started and ended and did its mission, and I hope there's other ad hoc committees like Recalc, there'll be Simon's Way, different ones.
Yep.
So it's a lesson for all of us on
Good blueprint.
how they work. So the select board's doing that, they're doing, a lot of other stuff. We're not even gonna be till the end of the meeting, so that's just kind of my main report, because that's, even after it ended, just collating it all in the last week.
Yep, well, I think that's, whether we do it, in our next meeting, but, not in the not too distant future, it would be great to to walk through, what you put together.
Yeah, I think there's also, we have other than the private needs, there's a list of maybe unmet town needs that either will come before
Yep.
the town, like tree cutting, there's 100,000 in tree cutting, but also just, some of the boards, and now we're seeing more with the Birch Meadow project, that's gonna have to get in line with
Yep.
everything else. It looks like you have a very busy forum agenda put
Yeah.
together anyway, so I'm
Yep.
sure there's gonna be a lot, and inflation is the buzzword, even for what we were seeing on RAC.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Joe.
Just wanted to point out that Mark and someone else other than me named Joe is on the Zoom,
Oh, cool.
so we may have everyone.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, it's tough with this view. I probably should join the Zoom on my laptop, but I didn't do that. All right, Jean, anything from your end?
No.
Emily?
I went to all the Killam School Building Committee meetings. They approved what we're probably gonna talk about ad nauseum for the next couple hours. And I attended the Recreation Committee meeting yesterday at the request of the chair. The pickleball community is in the process of forming a 503C so they can do some fundraising because they desperately want to get on the capital improvement plan to build themselves a dedicated pickleball court.
There is pickleball on the capital improvement plan.
There is, but there's no timeline for it,
Yeah.
so they were like, well, when would the soonest it could be? I'm like, if you get a big private donation, a couple of years, and they were like, we might be dead by then, so they are very motivated and they are going to be fundraising aggressively over the next 12 months to get the pickleball courts that are on the Birch Meadow thing maybe shuffled up in the timeline, so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, thanks, Jackie, for doing that. Appreciate it.
Mark twice.
Double marks. Jeffrey, anything from you on liaison report?
I mean, school committee, the finance part is obviously the Killam school issue.
Yep.
For the most part.
Mark, anything on your end?
No.
Thanks. And nothing from my end, that everyone else is kind of covered. I actually haven't probably attended the last couple of recent meetings, so we're caught up there. All right, good. So why don't we go on to the kind of the big bulk of the agenda and talk about FY24. So Fidel, if you can just kind of refresh where we left things off last month, and talking about it, that way we can look through those recommendations and then come together with some
So that's
guidance
where you
and
have
vote.
the September financial forum in the packet here.
Yep.
And I'll actually hand it off to Sharon. Sharon's on Zoom. Sharon lives in Haverhill. There's a particular strike happening in Haverhill that's impacting
Oh, that's
a lot of
right.
parents.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
So she can't join. I'll run through the presentation.
What did you want me to do? Put up the presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay, hold on a second.
Day 3 will the strike, Sharon?
I'm sorry, no word yet. They're not done yet.
And they're gonna start finding them. Every town has their challenges this weekend.
Okay. Let's see. Can you see that?
Yes.
We can see it.
Did you want me to go over the presentation again? How did you want to do it?
I don't think we need to go through the whole thing again. Maybe just, well, if we can, since we met in September, I guess my first question, and I'll throw it out to everybody else, do we know officially where we are from a free cash perspective? And then second, I think just this, then the slide would just be the guidance and recommendations for FY24.
Okay, so the only news I have for free cash is that we submitted and our rep believes will be certified in time for November town meeting. The only change that I'd say that I saw when I was looking at free cash and submitting it was in between the time that we had our financial forum and the time that we're meeting now and me submitting, there were some funds that came in on some grants that were in deficit, so I came to a number of $19.8 million for free cash. So I think that's a little bit different from what we had. We had 19.69. It's up almost 19.8. So it's a little bit higher than what we talked about. And that's if my calculations are correct and they don't hold something back that I wasn't noting. So, and the last slide is the slide that we, whoops, I went right off. The last slide was the slide that gave us the different levels of free cash. There we are. So for I think it's 3,275,000. We could have the same 3.75 percent budget, operating budget. 3,275,000. I think I rounded it up to 3.28 million, or 3.10 for 3.5. 3.25 would be 2.92, and then 3% at 2.75 million.
14. One question that I had too, just and sorry, you're definitely on the right slide that I was asking about, but I guess just out of curiosity, when you go back to I think it's actually slide when you talk about free cash. I'm sorry, we talk about reserves. I think it's slide 6.
This one?
This one, yep, that one. When we're comparing the 3.75%, when we're looking at that from our perspective, we're taking that off the bottom line. So that's going to be in addition to where we are at, say, the 18.72, correct? So like that's where we're going to start, and then whatever we use will come off of that piece, correct?
So what you're seeing on the slide is the estimate I had when we had the first financial forum, which I told you a couple $100,000 more is actually there than
Right.
what I had at that time.
Right.
And then what we're actually planning or proposing using for November town meeting, giving us the 16.8 million, and then the other reserves bringing us up over 18.7 million.
Right.
And so that's where we'd be taking this money from, that 18 or 16.8 million of free cash. So, and then we have other reserves. So
Yep.
whatever you take is going to come off that 16.8 million
Yeah,
that
so we're-
remains if everything else gets
Yeah, so
approved.
then after town meeting, from what we've proposed, kind of those allocations, and given what you just said, we're right around 17 million.
Yes,
Gotcha.
about $17 million, yes.
Okay, perfect. I wanted to be able to, kind of use that as a juxtaposition for the numbers that are in that slide 12,
I think the
13.
The next slide also, I think is important, and it kind of shows, where the free cash came from, right? I mean, and just to highlight, essentially, I think Sharon shared with me that most years there's generous regeneration.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can see on this slide, just over $1 million it is particularly sustainable. It's something that we could see potentially happening again from year to year. And then the 1.44 are more like one-offs. That $414,000, that smart growth, that doesn't come in every year, and it doesn't usually stay in the general fund. We normally move it out to a stabilization fund. So the things that are in black with the stars, those tend to be things that we can't count on every year. Whereas the ones above, property tax, we always have some level of regeneration there because we have a certain amount budgeted for abatements, and if we abate less than what we projected, then we have regeneration related to property tax. We almost always have something in meals tax and motor vehicle excise tax. So those are our typical regeneration, is at least $1 million on the revenue side. So that's what I've seen over the last several years anyway.
And so, and then, sorry, just another kind of a question related to that. So then, so if you go to the next slide after that, that's the other side of that equation, whereas we had money. So is there a way in here that we have that, and I don't know if we went over this last time, last month, but is there something kind of from an analysis perspective, that where we think some of that is sustainable as well, from a savings perspective against expenditures?
The expense side, it's harder, because, a lot of times we're regenerating free cash because we have open positions, which we're always gonna have a certain level of. It's hard to know from year to year how much that's going to be. There's almost always a little bit from the employee benefits because we tend to have to be a little bit conservative the way we budget it, because we don't know about enrollment and how much it's going up each year. So we do conservatively budget benefits, and then we tend to use it as a funding source at subsequent town meetings. When we realize what our rates actually are and what our enrollment rate is, we can actually see that there's extra money there. But everything else, it's just it's difficult. The factors for expenses aren't as predictable. What I will say is that since I've been here, $1 million of regeneration on both sides, the revenue and expenses, is very typical. In fact, more in recent years. So
That was my question.
I would say this 2.48 might be high for a year, but we have been seeing quite a bit of regeneration. I don't know why we turn so much back for salaries. I would guess it has to do with the fact that it takes us quite a while to fill positions, especially on the public safety area. With fire, I think they have to do a longer process because it's civil service. So there's definitely longer times that these positions are open, and we needed the positions. It's not that we didn't, but at the time that we go without them.
Yeah, I mean, just anecdotally, Jane Kinsella came to FinCom in July and said that her expenses on vehicle maintenance were high because we couldn't hire a mechanic, and she literally had two vacant positions for mechanics that we couldn't fill. We have filled one of those two, and we still have one open that we've had open for a year now, probably. I mean, with on the fire side, it was kind of the same. The chief is sharing that people are not as eager to join either the fire department or police, and it is taking longer to find really good candidates. So it's not that we're hedging our funds or anything. It's just it's really hard to hire right now.
Yeah, and I would add that on the town side, there isn't any real buffer. We build it bottom up, so we're building it by the person in the position and where we expect them to be paid based on contracts or based on what we're planning to do for a COLA for that year and steps and all of that. So there isn't much buffer there. So we budget for every position with the person in the position. And, if it turns over, we budget for a lower step than the person who's retired would be at a higher step. So we definitely don't leave a ton of buffer in salaries. It's not that, it's really vacancies.
Gotcha. I have one go ahead, Jeffrey, go ahead.
So,
Go ahead.
if you could back up I think it's one slide before the delinquent taxes. I'm just curious, how much is the delinquent taxes that we have so this is the 319K was the amount that was paid that we didn't expect. How much more is there that is unpaid? And how much do we typically see, and when do we see things becoming delinquent? Right, I mean, we could in fact have nobody pay their delinquent taxes and several people become delinquent, such that in fact, instead of a positive number, we would see a negative number in unpaid taxes.
So first up, I don't know off the top of my head what we have outstanding, although I feel like we do get most of our bills paid in a very timely fashion. There will always be delinquent taxes if somebody doesn't pay their bill by the end of the fiscal year. The reason I always put that as one-time payments is there's no way to show that on the recap when we're setting the tax rate, because those taxes were part of a prior year and were part of the levy from a prior year. There's no place on the recap to budget for potential delinquent taxes coming in. So it almost always is an infusion to free cash anytime we have delinquent taxes, because there's just no way DOR doesn't provide us any way to deal with that because we have a tax levy that we set from the prior year can only go up 2.5% plus new growth. And so the delinquent taxes were already part of a prior levy. They're outstanding because somebody didn't pay their prior year taxes. And so it almost always causes some level of infusion to free cash. So it could be considered sustainable, I guess you could say, but we can't budget for it because there's no place to put it.
Yeah, one example is properties that owe taxes and the ownership changes hands, right? So it probably is sold. Then the all of those taxes have to be paid before it is transferred over, right? So that in many ways we probably will always get our taxes. Knock on wood. It's a matter of
Eventually,
time.
yeah,
Eventually,
right, sure.
eventually.
But I guess, is that a net number, the 319, or, I mean, I assume that some people didn't pay their taxes at the end of, by June 30th. So those would be new delinquent taxes.
But that was whatever we collected from any year that was outstanding.
So
In fiscal 22. So if it was in fiscal 22 taxes, part of that year's levy, any taxes from a prior year would fall into that bucket of delinquent taxes. So that's not like one specific year. It could even be taxes that have been sitting in tax title for over a year. So that is a net number of all of the, or gross number, well, net of all the different years that would be outstanding that we collected in fiscal 22.
But it's all the stuff that came in from previous fiscal years, minus, I assume, some amount that was not paid in FY22.
So
It went newly delinquent.
what's not paid from what's not paid in fiscal 22 would appear as regeneration in fiscal 23 when it's paid. This is revenues that actually came in the door. So if they didn't get paid in fiscal 22, they wouldn't be part of this number. They would be.
But if it didn't get paid in FY22, then that's property taxes we expected to bring in that we didn't.
Exactly.
So where does that show up?
Number 2, it shows up on the property taxes line.
So see the property taxes, the 418, that's property taxes above and beyond what we budgeted for. So when we're putting the tax recap together, we have a budget or a projection for abatements, and that would be people challenging the value of their house and saying that their property taxes are too high. And so what we do is when we're projecting our revenues, we have our levy minus the abatements. That's what we actually budget for. And so when you see money coming back on that property tax line, it's because we abated less than what we projected. And that's why we have a number there.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, there's probably some delinquent taxes, but, it's that in combination with the abatements, we're still coming in higher than budget. Because the abatements are that much lower than what we're projected.
But it's that first line where the new delinquent taxes would show up, is in the total, in the property taxes line.
If everyone makes good on their threat to stop paying their taxes because of the trash.
Yeah, they would be netted against the property tax, that first number.
Yes.
So, that regeneration number would have been bigger, obviously, if everybody paid their taxes, right? And we,
Okay.
because we have abatements that came in lower than what we projected, so we're regenerating free cash in that arena. So I guess you could say it's netted into that property tax number, that first number.
Thank you.
I have, go ahead, Jean, go ahead.
I just have a quick question. Can you remind me, Sharon, what we did with free cash in FY23? Should be something off the top of my head, but
You mean, what do we use?
yes,
Let's see.
I think I know. Let's see if my memory is right.
I want to say it was 2.950.
And that's all in, right?
But then I guess in total, we used 3.67 million. So we had started off the year with the 2,950,000, and then we must have used additional free cash to purchase that property. I'm trying to remember, was it there was like a $450,000 property that we purchased from cash. There was a couple different things we used free cash for. So the total for the year for fiscal 22 was 3.67, and in that number is the 2 million, I'm sorry, for fiscal 23 it was 2,750,000. That would be in that fiscal 22 number because we voted within fiscal 22 for the subsequent year. So 2,750,000 is what we started with for fiscal 23. I'm thinking about fiscal 21.
Okay, so it was 2.75, and my memory was approximately 2 million was to stabilize the operating budget. And the
Yes.
700 was increased capital that we planned to wean off of. Like rough
Yeah.
numbers, am I about right?
Yeah, roughly, yeah, around 600,000 or 700,000 of that number was for the additional capital to do the 5.5% for debt and capital as opposed to just 5% like we normally do.
Got it. Thank you.
That was FY 22.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I think what I was, in thinking about, just this in general, I was kind of brought back to what Sean Cronin was talking about at the forum as far as the to not have, free, to try to avoid as much as possible having free cash, apply to and sustain operating budgets. But, so I will say that, but because, and that's why I asked the questions that I asked about what is historically, kind of sustainable on the expense side, historically regenerated on the revenue side, because I think while you see at 3.75%, that's, $3.28 million. When you back out those two numbers, then now you're talking about something that's, a little over $1 million. It's $1.15 million. And then to Gene's last point, we're also directing capital to that as well. So then now you're looking at a number that's, so we aren't as far off as I thought we were when we were having the, when Sean was, when Sean was having his description of it. So I think that's, it was great to have him, kind of speak to that from a municipal budget perspective. And I'm reassured that we're playing that out as far as how we operate our budgets as well.
So one thing to mention just in that vein is that our average for regeneration over the last 5 years has been over 4 million. And there have been a couple of years where that is extraordinarily high numbers, bringing that estimate up. I can remember when I first started in 10 years ago, for several years, it was 1.5 million on each side, revenue and expenses. That seemed to be the trend. We tended to have like 1 million or 1.5 million on each side. But there was the year that we did the override. We had an exceptionally big turn back that year for, obvious reasons. We had, budgeted positions that we didn't have hired right away. So obviously a lot of was turned back in the year of the override. And then just during the pandemic, there was excessive turn back in some of the years. So I would say that the numbers are higher than I'm used to support an operating budget, but we do seem to have pretty high regeneration numbers over the last 10 years.
Well, I think that's going to come when you use a percentage, like if you're using a percentage, our base is bigger, so that, so the number, the actual, dollar amount is going to grow because, your baseline's growing from an operating budget perspective anyway. So, any other questions from anybody on this in the recommendation? Oh, go ahead, Jane.
I do. I just want to clarify that these figures we're looking at on the screen don't include any withdrawals for capital projects beyond the capital plan. What I'm thinking of is the $2 million for Killam that we're going to be talking about later. I believe later we're talking about.
Yeah, that those would have been backed out on the earlier slide. So this would be just to support the fiscal 24 operating budget, and that would include the additional capital that we would ask for to keep us at 5.5 as opposed to the 5%.
All right, lost me. Sorry,
here.
everybody.
No,
No, it's here.
Okay, so the three, like, so let's say you picked 2.75
Yep.
million dollars. That would give us a 3% operating budget with capital at 5.5.
I still think these are-
Debt and capital at 5.5%.
Got it.
So this is the total amount of free cash. So included in that number would be $600,000 or $700,000 to bring our capital up at 5.5.
But not the 2 million for Kilmer,
Yeah, so,
obviously.
Yeah, not the
Yeah.
2 million,
Good,
but
I just-
for-
I just-
Yeah,
Could it possibly be
No,
included? I just wanna make sure I'm
extra half
understanding the
of the percent
numbers.
that
no, yeah, so
That-
we're starting from
that-
17.
debt and capital.
Yeah, I mean, this number here, the 3.28 is gonna come out of the
Yes.
17.
Yeah, got it.
If everything goes well and,
Right.
Everything that we
If we were
proposed.
to spend those.
yeah, exactly.
Got it.
I don't wanna put the cart before the horse, but
That's helpful.
we know where the cart's going.
2.75
Yep.
out of the 1.7. Thank you, everybody, for tolerating me.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I mean, we I spoke to our superintendent and you know, we heard about inflation, we heard about you know, we heard about everything that we're trying to do, both on the town side, but also on the school side, right? And my only I guess statement ahead of your recommendation vote is that last year I believe the guidance was 4%, right? And you know, the to make a drastic cut from that in FY24 would put myself and the superintendent in a position of trying to accommodate a lot of things. So I just ask that hopefully you know, this is not the year to ratchet down our support of the budgets, right? I mean, we know inflation is through the roof. We know salaries are you know, are being stretched. So that's all I want to say.
Any other questions? And then so I mean, again, on this slide here, thoughts from the committee on using the same guidelines as FY23? Do we want, you know, and I guess just, you know, maybe some, you know, debate and viewpoints on that. Joe, you had your hand up first, but then I'll go to Marion.
So I wanted to sort of make a comment on the highlighted line here of the 3.75 is also, it's not exact, I think, but it's close to 3% plus the additional for additional 700 for capital, as I understand it. So I'm not crazy about a 3.75%. I'm much happier with a 3% plus we're spending more on capital. So given that, in light of, you know, assuming that we're going to keep up the increased capital, you know, 5.5% instead of 5 for another year, then in light of that, the 3.75% makes sense to me.
So I'm trying to remember where we were last year when everyone agreed to 4%, and maybe the schools are more familiar to me than the town, and I know there was a lot put forth about, you know, pandemic recovery, and they added positions, and, you know, they got $2 million in ARPA money for new curriculum, which is a major supplement for them. So I'd be curious to know, given that there's no new union contracts being negotiated, why they feel they need to be at 4% again, given that we thought we gave them a big running start last year with that, plus they're getting ARPA money.
In my conversations with the superintendent, and I won't speak to him, but we would be very satisfied with Sharon's proposal of 3.75.
Okay, and I thought I heard you saying you would,
If you give us 4, that's
okay, yes.
No, but last year it was 3.85%.
What,
So I highlighted the one that was very close to what we did last year.
okay, yeah, no, I just remember there was exceptional, and we're keeping going. Some of the things that went in the school, I know there were ESSER grants and there were certain one-time things, and then we added, you know, all of the the Metco adjustment counselors at every elementary school. We now have a second Metro coordinator. I mean, the schools have even added some positions since the budget was passed that I followed. There's an extra administrator at the high school and things like that. So I guess I was hoping that that was like the big pandemic hit, but maybe not. I mean, maybe there's the new proposals for next year. On the town side, I assume a lot is inflation. I don't know what are the new things that are
So
coming
I
up.
would say that on the school side, I think they have an ESSER grant going away, or over the next couple of years, the ESSER grants are going away or slowly falling off. And I think that they're going to have needs to absorb the cost of those salaries in this upcoming fiscal 24 budget. So I think that that hadn't happened yet in the prior year. The prior year, I believe we added, I want to say $250,000 for adjustment counselors for the schools when the kids came back from the pandemic. I want to say that they had some real needs for more counselors.
I
And
think they
that
added like
was-
900,000 in salaried position, 8 to 900,000 in extra salaried positions last year. I could bring up the budget. I bet
Oh, yeah. Was it that much?
it
I
was a
know-
lot.
I know that we gave a accommodated cost or a community priority of 250,000. So I don't know how much they actually spent, but I know that we took that off the top as an accommodated cost. So it wasn't included as part of their split.
Yeah, maybe I wasn't just talking, they added other positions too. The
okay.
counselors were one thing,
Yeah.
but I think that there was something, I think at one point I counted like 11 new positions. They might have added them. Offline, I can bring up the budget and
Some
be
of those
sure.
were funded by the Metco grant though, right?
They're using 50% of the Metco grant, but the Metco grant, I mean, they were adding extra buses and I gotta believe the Metco costs are going up with transportation costs
All
going
costs
up.
are going up. I feel like inflation is hitting us in every
They
different
took on
direction.
more Metco students, so the Metco grant went up, but then we have 40 more students and there's costs associated with that. I don't know that the Metco grant might have covered the costs of those counselors, but they still had other positions they were adding. I'm bringing up our budget. I have to go.
The dropping the fees for full-day kindergarten is a big driver to the budget, I think. Which, I mean, this is like year 2 of that, right? So that's definitely still a need.
So this was, fiscal 24 is the first year that we put that in as a accommodated cost or a community priority. And we put $150,000 into this budget for fiscal 24 to start that process for full day K, to try and start funding it. And then we had an agreement that the school would look for another 150 within their budget. And they came up with some great ideas on how they could do that. And then the other option we had to try and, get this funded faster was to see what we do with new growth over the years. And if there's extra money in new growth, we might be able to squeeze some funding out of there in November town meeting when we do know what that actual number is going to be.
No school? I don't know.
Okay, you can see if anyone else has any comments.
I apologize, because I think I asked this before, so sincerely apologize. What is the overage, I don't even know how to ask the question. To get to 5.5% capital, what is the dollar amount of free cash we're using? I have 700 in my head. I have it right, Joe's got it.
I think it was around 600.
Okay,
Between 600, it says up above. Note that above 700,000 is directed at extra capital. Yeah, it's 700,000.
it was in my head, because it's in front of my face. Thank you.
That's why I was so confident.
So, yeah, thank you. I was like, why do I have that number in my head? I think I have it right. Okay, so when I look at these numbers, I really think about them as so different. So the use of 3.28 is really like 700 capital that we can wean off of very easily, really, over time. And 2.5 that becomes part of the operating stability. Okay, thank you. Should have had a cup of coffee before this meeting.
Any other comments? Questions? So then at this point, do we wanna, take a recommendation and then put it into a motion?
Does anyone on Zoom have a comment? I'm thinking of the two
Yeah, Mark?
committee members.
Is it Mark and Joe or just Mark?
There's a Joe here. I don't know if it's our Joe.
I don't have any comment.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, so what we're talking about is 3.75 at 3.28, and if I'm right, we're looking at increasing the operating budget support from about 2 million to about 2.5 million. And I am utterly comfortable, I think it would be irresponsible to not supplement by $1 million. We know we get $1 million back. Realistically, looking at the history, I'm pretty comfortable going to 2, because it's there. So we're really only talking about an overage of $500,000 over what I feel confident is sustainable, and with the healthy free cash balance we have, I feel like it's reasonable, so I'm comfortable with the 2, I think.
The 3.75?
The 3.75%, which is the 3.28 usage.
Yeah.
And the only reason I'm comfortable is 700 of that is capital. I would not be comfortable with that level all in the operating budget, but yeah.
And I did find the number on the school thing, just that they upped it by 871K last year. So I knew it was between 8 and 900.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're going for that level of increase again.
You're like a magician. You pull those things up so fast.
No, I always remember where I've seen something, so it's just a matter of getting into the document, like sort of semi-photographic, but not quite.
So, and I don't recall this, is this something that we vote on,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Okay. So then, so given where we've kind of talked about at this point, let's just have a motion and then take it to a vote.
I'll do it. Move to instruct the town accountant to move forward building the FY24 budget using $3.28 million in free cash, which represents a 3.75 increase to operating budgets. The assumption is that 700,000 of this is directed at extra capital over and above the 5% minimum FinCom policy.
Second.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
All right,
like
so we'll vote. I'll start with you, Mark.
Yes,
Joe?
Do we have Joe?
Yeah, so is Joe McDonough on?
I don't see him.
There was a Joe, that's the only reason I gotta stand.
Hi, it's Joe McDonough.
There he is.
Hear me now?
Hey,
Yeah,
Joe.
sorry, I'm traveling, just having trouble with connection and stuff, so, but, yes, so.
Thanks, Joe. All right, then Joe C in the building.
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Emily.
Yep.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
and Ed, yes. So that is 8-0. Done with item 1.
Had to try for 4.
You're doing your job.
That's right.
That's right.
Okay, so then, thanks Sharon for that, and then, next we had was, now we're going through the warrant, right?
Yeah, I had some questions on that.
Jackie, could you pull up page 37 in the packet? Thank you. So in the packet tonight, you have the warrant report. It's almost finished. We're almost there. There are 23 articles on the packet. Obviously, we are not requesting that you vote on all of them. We are requesting that you vote on the financial items. Sharon, I'm wondering if you can walk us through Article 3.
Yep.
So Article 3 basically is amending the capital improvement program for FY23. Sharon has done a fantastic job putting the capital plan together for this year. And we have presented it to FinCom and the select board a couple of times now. Sharon?
Oh, sure. The one thing I will say is this Article 3 does not look like it's the most up-to-date version. If you can scroll back up to Article 3. So this is the changes to the capital plan.
Yep.
And the Parker roofing project, since this was printed, is no longer needed and it's going to be tabled because they had opened bids. So it really is going to be 405 for the net changes for fiscal 23. So that would have come off. So this version doesn't include that change. That's the only thing that has changed since this version. And then for fiscal '24, we have a net of $112,000 of net changes, some adds, some subtractions. Basically me just trying to balance it out and figure out where I can put things and have it all balanced, and still meet the demands of what people really need. In some cases, some things can't move and other things are a little bit more pliable and we can move them. So for fiscal '24, a net change of 112.
So Sharon, just a quick thing, just going back to FY '23. So if I'm reading this right, if Parker roof comes off, that was the 500K in debt authorization?
Yes, so that we learned kind of last week that wasn't going to be needed anymore.
And there's Article 17 as well.
You know, I almost want to pull up and make sure nothing else changed, like I'm getting nervous looking at this, let me just make sure. I'm gonna pull up the most recent one.
Can you explain what you mean by not needed anymore? Cause I thought we heard there was inflation, I'm confused.
Yeah.
And then you said went out to bid, is it because
I
it's
opened the
unbidded?
bids and it came in
The
lower.
bids are lower, right?
Oh,
Yeah, the bids are lower.
but then are they gonna turn around and say, oh, wait, supply chain, I mean,
Yeah, so we
do we trust that?
we in the background for Article 17, there's a lot of explanation, but essentially, I want to say in 2021, we approved $2.5 million for the Parker roof.
Yep.
Joe basically chose to not do anything because of the inflation fears, and then he realized this year that we couldn't wait any longer. So he went to essentially dust off the project, and at the time the engineer said that inflation was going through the roof.
Oh, so it was a just in case amount, in
It was
case
just
the
in
bids
case.
came in.
It was just in case amount, but we wanted to have a firm number, a contract essentially, ahead of town meeting, and we opened bids last week. The lowest bid was $1.3 million, and the highest bid was $2.3 million. And the six companies responded. The majority of them were kind of in the middle of the slug. So basically 1.7 to 1.9. So hopefully, even if there's unforeseen circumstances, hopefully we have enough coverage
In the initial authorization.
additional authorization to do it. If the low bidder is able to do it, at the price that was bid, then it's a huge win for the town.
Yeah, I guess as long as the bidders aren't reading our warrants and saying, well, they're willing to
Wait a
do
second.
this, so let's all bid high.
I should have done more homework. Yeah, no, it makes sense. So
Okay.
thanks for that, Sharon, appreciate it.
Yeah, and we'll just walk you through the FY23 item. So the $80,000 firearms replacement is essentially all police officers are issued a firearm by the department. The last time that we replaced firearms was 12 years ago, and they have a 10-year lifetime. So it's overdue. Because of maintenance, training and stuff like that, we don't like having multiple models at the same time, right? So essentially, what happens, and it's not just writing. It's most departments, they do a wholesale replacement on firearms at the same time.
Is this the one where I think they said at select board they can't even get the parts for the
They
old
can't
ones
even get the
anymore?
parts.
Yeah.
But our parts are worth something.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
We can take the pieces out of ours and sell them to
Exactly.
somebody else who's still trying to extend.
It's just gonna eke a few more years out.
A lot of bad jokes I can make about that, but I'm not going there. The second item is the tennis courts and the basketball courts at Sturgis are in rough shape, and we heard it in particular from the pickleball folks. So we are asking $60,000 to resurface the tennis courts at Sturgis and the basketball courts at Sturgis. And then 65,000. We had this item in FY24 because of Sharon's ability to move things around. We were able to kind of free in some capacity in FY23. This is a fire department vehicle. Currently, the fire department is borrowing a vehicle from the police department. Not a good scenario. Not a good scenario. So buying this vehicle would be important. The $500,000 that we talked about is no longer needed. We'll scratch that, and then the $200,000 is something that I believe Joe Huggins reported this to the school committee that the price of glycol, which is the liquid that is used in heating and cooling systems, is through the roof. I mean, it's almost 10 times the original cost, and at the high school in particular, it has exceeded its useful life, and we're not going to live through another season if we don't replace it.
So there was an original request in April, and this is 200,000 on top of what was in April because glycol increased.
I believe there was an original request in April. Sharon, is that?
I mean, that's what
Did I
it
get it right?
says.
That's going to be requested this April. It's not needed until April, but it's already part of the capital plan, so we don't forget about it. So it's not going to be asked for in November, but in the April town meeting coming up this year.
Thanks, Sharon.
Any questions on the FY24 bits for anybody on the committee? Oh, go ahead, Joe, sorry.
So, seems like a no-brainer that of course we should do it, but I'm kind of curious how the firearms replacement snuck up on us if it wasn't on the plan before, since we presumably knew for 12 years that they would be 12 years old now. Any insight into that? No? Okay.
Don't know that.
Was it, I mean, I thought I recall the chief saying that it was on the, it wasn't on like the plan, but it was out a couple of years?
That sounds
Did we
familiar.
keep pushing it ahead maybe
I think that's right.
and delaying it? I know there was the taser thing a couple of years ago, but.
Yeah, I do recall, I don't know, I can't say that I saw it, but I do, I think I recall a conversation from the chief where he mentioned that it was on there, but I think they probably got to a point where, from a parts perspective, that it's accelerated. And I think it's the philosophical piece of not having two different sets of firearms.
Right. And he'll the chief will be in town meeting. I mean, there's a lot of benefits by modernizing the firearms. So one is the new firearms come with a laser, which obviously has a lot of benefits, and they actually come in different sizes. So they are more friendly to grip, like big hands versus small hands, and with our department in particular, we are actively recruiting female police officers, so that's something that we're sensitive to. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to
That makes sense.
modernizing.
So page 19 of the packet shows the changes to the FY22 to 30 plan, and it actually shows that as new.
Yeah, I saw those.
It was not pushed or pulled back, so. Like, Joe has a
That's
good
the only reason
question.
I asked,
Yeah,
is
why
because
is
it
it-
does seem like something that, with a 10-year lifespan, we probably put it off at least 2 years to get to where we are.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not sure why it wasn't on the capital plan, but I do recall the chief saying that they are unable to get parts for the firearms, and that they had high replacement value. I mean, they'll be able to trade them in for a higher value if they do it, because anybody that has this version can't get parts for their guns.
Maybe they were just trying to be economical for us and ask for other things, like I thought we replaced some police cars in the past few years, so maybe there were higher priority items that they thought they would get benefit from, squeeze more life out of these, so to speak.
Yeah. And to speak on the that replacement value, how it works essentially, it's through a dealer, and there's only 2 licenses in the state of Massachusetts. So we're going to give them our guns, and they'll give us new ones, and they'll charge us, the net cost. But we're asking obviously for a higher amount. because we don't know, you know, how good the guns are, you know, what the value of the parts are, and things like that. So the $80,000 figure is worst case scenario.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Jean.
Are we gonna vote as we go through or wait till the end and vote all at once?
I say let's go and vote as we're going along, because there's so many of them we'll forget.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yep.
Unless there's one where we discuss it and go, oh, this could have implications, maybe hold on it, but for
Yep.
one like this, I'd be comfortable voting now.
No, I would be too. Any other questions or comments on Article 3?
So I guess back to the glycol thing, why is that going in April and not now?
I think Joe wants it teed up, because I think it's gonna affect the summertime, and that could be March or it could be June.
I think he was worried about the costs. He
So
wasn't sure about.
It might be
the
more
cost.
than 200,000 by the time we get to April?
Well, he's estimating the cost right now at 200,000, but I think he's worried that it could be more than that. So, and they don't need to start doing the work until after April. So he wanted it on the capital plan for fiscal 23, but he's trying to shore up the number of what it actually has to be.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a fiscal year 24 question, or was Dylan?
No, you guys, yeah.
I, former rec committee member, am delighted to see there's an extra $175K earmarked for field, playground, and court improvement. Do you have a sense of what those are, or at Jenna's discretion, or at Ariel's discretion, I guess?
Yeah, no, we do, and I am also thrilled. The majority of that, so we have been doing $25,000 a year for a long time. We are increasing from 25 to 200, so it's going to be, you know, a net increase of 175. This is going to be to resurface as much as possible the tennis courts and the basketball courts at Barrows, which
Finally.
direly needed.
Yeah.
Really do.
Direly needed.
I thought Barrows was on the plan as someone who used to live 2 blocks from Barrows, not anymore, but I still tripped on those tennis courts
It's
before.
as in my 10 years on rec, you know, those are the things they just get pushed. So I'm really happy to see, because Barrows, it's not even
It's not
walkable
it's not,
at this
yeah,
point.
yeah, no.
Forget playable, so that's exciting. I feel great about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Barrows tennis court repairs, Barrows basketball repairs, they're right there on the
They're on FY27, which is why I'm confused.
were they expediting them?
Seems so.
Replace backstop and repair fields?
Actually, that's a good
They
segue.
can't, do all of that with this money, cause they're saying it's like tennis court repairs were 125, basketball courts 100, backstop and repair infield 125.
Absolutely, we will do it as much as we can. If you had given me 4%, we would do it.
I know that the Little League is planning to make a giant donation for baseball field replacement and upgrades there too. So I think maybe in conjunction, doing things kind of at the same time is maybe why there's a push to move it up. I don't care, I feel great about it.
I have a question, sort of a procedural question. So, because Mary and I are both squinting at the spreadsheet in the packet, and if something doesn't look the same between the spreadsheet and the packet and what we see here, the changes that are made to the capital improvement plan are the ones that town meeting votes on here, and what's in the spreadsheet is presumably not, like, if these two disagree, then that's correct, right?
That is correct. Presumably they should be the same, but
Yeah, but
we'll
just,
verify.
yeah.
There's the spreadsheet that needs to get updated once town meeting
Yes.
Yeah.
officially votes it.
I'll focus my picky questions on this then, if I have any. Thanks.
All right. Let's, if there are
Do you
no
want
other
to review
questions.
more of the FY24 numbers, or you just, there's
Yeah, if there's any other questions on F124
it's just, you know,
or detail?
Vidal went through the 3 items on the FY23. I didn't know if you had any comments to make on the FY24 items, or would they speak for themselves?
Sharon, was there anything on FY24 you wanted to mention? Anything?
Big increase on the pickup truck
Yeah.
and parks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was something that we heard and we shared, you know, with FinCom and the select board, that if you see the DPW vehicles in particular, I mean, the lead time and cost of those vehicles are just through the roof.
They got heavy use this week, and everyone appreciates them.
Good time to ask.
It's a really good time to ask you.
Yep.
Loaders.
So that's almost all of the positives are those vehicles. Other than the playground, everything else looks like it's a vehicle increase due to, I mean, something that was already in the plan, but the amount is increased due to costs of vehicles being made.
That's correct.
And so the net change for FY23 is $405,000,
$405,000. That's correct.
and that will be adjusted in the packet the warrant that's handed out.
Yep. Definitely.
And that's what we're asked to vote on today,
That's
is
correct.
405 for FY23 and 112 for FY24.
That's correct.
I'm gonna try. Move to recommend the subject matter of Article 3 as presented.
Thanks, Mary Ann. We'll start with Mark,
Yes.
Joe McDonough,
Yes.
Joe C,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
and yes, 8-0.
Thank you. The next one it's Article 4, which is amend the FY23 budget. Sharon, if you're still on the line,
Yes,
thank you.
I'm still here.
Thank you.
So, Article 4 is just amending the current year budget. And so we have, some benefits adjustments that we need to make. So the amount that we had budgeted for the retirement assessment, was $145,000 too high, so I adjusted that. And workers' comp was a little bit higher than we needed. And health insurance, we have some extra there. So we're using those as a funding source for some of the other things that we'd like to get done. So you see the next line down is capital, the $205,000 is for the items we just voted minus the $200,000 for the reclamation that we're gonna ask for in April instead of November. Regional vocational education, we do budget for that, but it's very difficult because we very rarely know who is enrolled there in time to get an accurate number. And so now that we're starting to get bills, we recognize that one of our schools needs $30,000 more for that line item. The other thing that we have here is the FinCom reserves. Earlier you had approved a $30,000 increase to the veterans agent salary line. And so that's us refunding that money back to you at November town meeting to make you whole again. Next page, please. Jackie, thank you. And then you'll notice throughout, we did a paying class study. So the identified areas where the paying class adjustments need to be made, you'll see throughout. Administrative services has $22,000 that needs to be added to make the adjustments recommended by the consultants. And then administrative service expenses, our property and casualty insurance came in much higher than expected. We needed to make an adjustment there. And the paying class expense, $85,000 was budgeted as part of the fiscal 23 in the expense area, knowing that we would take it out of there and use that money to fund some of the adjustments that needed to be made based on what the consultant recommended. in public services, we have a vacation buyback that we have for $25,000. The senior center receptionist going to full-time. We had a part-time person there. That's something that we're looking to add. And then we have a pay and class adjustments of a total of $43,000 across that group. And then the public safety wages, there's health and police with some pay and class adjustments at $15,005 for a total of $20,000. In finance, we have a vacation buyback, and then we had the treasurer leave us in August, and he is working 1 day a week. I am so sorry, my dog just keeps barking. So we have overlap going on where he comes in 1 day a week to help us train our new treasurer. So that's the $9,000 there. Hopefully we won't need all of that, but just in case. Pay and class adjustments of $35,000. And then public works pay and class adjustments of $9,000. And then public works, we have the Birch Meadow Complex study for $40,000 that's been requested. And then library pay and class adjustments of $23,000. And then town buildings, the vacation sick buyback in the facilities area of $13,000. So the grand total of all the adds is $536. The decreases are $247. The net coming from free cash is $275. And then for the enterprise funds, we just have a couple pay and class adjustments on the water and the sewer at $4,000 each for a total of $8,000.
And I'll just kind of elaborate a little bit, in particular with the pay and class study. So in the FY23 budget, we had an item allocated for $40,000 to hire a consultant essentially and do a market analysis of non-union employees in the town. We hired this consultant. They reviewed our job descriptions. They interviewed the employees to ensure that the job descriptions matched the actual work, and then they classified those jobs based on on a matrix of complexity and decision making, policy making, and different items. And then they put them in a ranking in a score sheet. And they did a market comparison against our FinCom peer communities. So our 23, I want to say, of FinCom peer communities. They issued a survey essentially to those communities, and based on those surveys, they are recommending that we make certain changes to these employees. We have the benefit that Bob was forward-looking, and he included $85,000 in our FY23 budget already, right? So even if no new money is approved, we can address $85,000 worth of employees. However, we're being a little bit optimistic, and we're asking to address in this November town meeting. All of the direct frontline employees. So we are not addressing any managers, any department heads, any directors. We want to address the frontline employees in many ways because those employees are the ones who we love. And this hasn't been presented to all department heads. They are very supportive of this approach, addressing employees first, hands-on employees first, frontline maybe employees first, and addressing department heads as part of the FY24 budget. So if you tally all those numbers on the pay class adjustments, they tally $152,000. If you take out the $85,000, we are asking for an additional $67,000. And just again, we were going back to inflation. We're going back to the fact that we hear people saying that their money is not lasting as long as it had in the past. We are requesting to a town meeting that we address our frontline staff members in this November town meeting. So that's the one item. The other item that I wanted to highlight is the Birch Meadow Complex pedestrian traffic and improvements study. So in the last select board meeting, I shared that we submitted a grant, a complete streets grant to add sidewalks on Auburn Street and Parkview Road. That is a $500,000 grant, but it takes engineering basically to tee up that grant. We submitted that grant. We should hear back in January. There's also a fairly large Mass DOT grant called Save Routes to School program. We have received it in Reading in the past, but in order to be competitive in that program, we need to have somewhat of an idea of what we're submitting for. So this $40,000 would fund a lot of the work needed to not obviously. No construction, but it's more engineering studies that would tee up hopefully for grants in the future.
There's a question about that. So in the phase 1 of the Birch Meadow Master Plan, part of that is addressing parking, and there are plans there to do some studies of the area by the conservation. So I don't know if there's opportunity there to like piggyback those together as the same thing. And then separately, just some addition issues on some of these numbers. In B99, we've got 3 items, 145, 20, and 80, which sum to 245, and we have 247. So Sharon, I wasn't sure if there was an extra, if these are rounded or if something.
I'm sorry, can you scroll up, Jackie, so I can see what he's referring to?
The last digit's a 7, but there's only a 5 there, so yeah, where did the 7 come from? That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, so the 3 things in the description sum to 245, but the overall decrease is marked as 247. Keep going up, Jackie, it's B99.
So
Just wanted to see if there was an extra $2,000 or what.
You know, at one point we had the health insurance at 82,000, so changing it back to 80, so it would be 245.
Okay, and then the subtotal, right now it reads 247 decrease, 536 increase, which is a net of 289, not 275. But if we're changing that to 245, it would be 291. I'm insane and I need everything to add up.
Sounds like you should be in the finance committee.
I
Seriously.
thought it was all in a spreadsheet and it just corrected itself, but some things are written.
Yeah, Word documents aren't,
I
or
was gonna say,
PDFs aren't
this
as
is a
fun.
Word document here, so it starts
But
as
it
a
could have been
spreadsheet.
pasted from a linked
That's true.
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
But this is a Word document, so.
Okay.
I was gonna say, the spreadsheet will add the numbers in a text box together.
That's why you brought me on,
That's,
look at numbers.
So the 40,000 is for the complex, not, because Parkview and Auburn are not in the Birch Meadow complex. They're streets like on the way to the high school.
Yeah, what I heard in my conversations around there, it is around the complex. So it is Oakland Road, it is Birch Meadow Drive, but it's also the streets leading up to.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Like
I
Hillside,
drive those frequently.
Parkview,
There's no sidewalks
Auburn,
there and
right.
just kids walking to the high school every day and the middle school.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Jean.
So a concern I have is we just agreed to a level of free cash to support an operating budget. And I see 2 positions that have grown here that are presumably gonna move forward, right? So there's a veteran service and a receptionist that are now full-time. So we're taking money from free cash, but we're now funding those positions ongoing. So that's effectively increasing the operating budget beyond what we just voted. And some of the paying class, the 67,000 over and above the 85 is also. So there's about 100,000 here that we'll have to sustain. So our comfort level with what we just voted, it seems to me, unless I'm missing something, needs to go up by $100,000.
Well, this, if you go back to slide 6,
It was included in that.
it's included in that. So, I mean, it's.
I really should look more at slide 6.
Yeah, it was in there at 275. I mean, so.
Yep.
But when we were talking about, we're starting our free cash from 17. 'cause
It's already calculated in there.
This was one of the ones, and we'll have the same, we'll have the same reminder for Article 7, Article 18,
Yeah.
that these were already here. Your other point though is a larger one, is that the repercussions of this isn't a one-time.
Yeah, thank you.
It's, like, this is now, funding in FY '23, something that's going to have to be sustained going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the $100,000, I actually can I have a follow-up?
Oh, of course.
How often do we do a pay and cost study?
So the last time that it was done was in 2015.
So this isn't something that's gonna happen. It's not like it's gonna happen every year and we're gonna keep growing the base.
Unless inflation stays at about 10-15%.
Yeah, the last time that it was done, it was in 2017 and 2015, sorry, and I wasn't here, but Sharon explained to me that it was done over, basically it was implemented, if you will. The recommendations were implemented over 3 years, right? And Sharon and Bob shared how much, how much frustration that costs on the employees, because it's like, who am I addressing first? Is it me? Is it Jeff? Is it 3 years from now? It seems like forever if you're an employee, right? And we are being absolutely, we're being aggressive here, but we are and our department heads are 100% aligned that we do want to go and request that all of the frontline employees get addressed.
Yeah, and I would add to that, I'm thinking about the labor situation right now and the vacancies you're having trouble filling. I think there's an argument to move forward with it.
Yep.
Okay, I'm comfortable
We
with it.
definitely having struggles hiring
Yeah.
because we're not as competitive as our peers.
Yeah, and that's even globally, that isn't just government or how competitive we are right now, it's a hard time to hire, so, yeah, okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions on Article 4?
Hi, it's Joe McDonough.
Hey, Joe.
Sharon, quickly, on the benefits, correct? That's good news, but is that something that we would expect to be recurring?
In terms of savings,
Yeah, like, it's going in the right direction, right? But
yeah, I
both
feel
for the retirement assessment and like health insurance, is there anything driving that delta this year?
so. I would say that part of it is that we just know that we conservatively budget for health insurance, so we always know there's a little excess in there. Or not always, but in general, we do it a conservative way because we don't know what our increases are going to be and what enrollment is going to be. So every year there tends to be some excess coming out of health insurance once we realize that there is some surplus in there. Now that could change over time, especially with inflation, especially with the economy the way it is. We may not see that we'll have excess there, but we have enjoyed some seriously low increases on health insurances over the last couple of years. Better than most for sure. And so we tend to have excess there. Will we always? That's hard to say. But when we do budget it, we try and be more conservative about how we budget it because we know that we don't know the rate of increase when we're building the budget and we don't know what enrollment looks like when we're building the budget. So that conservative style has always lent itself to us having a little excess in there, and then we tend to use that excess to fund other things as they present themselves.
Okay, and then would you say the same thing about the retirement assessment too?
I don't know what happened with the retirement assessment. I just went back and looked at the report coming from the actuary, which is where the amount comes from. And I happened to notice that it was higher than what the actual amount was supposed to be. So I don't know if we used a percentage and didn't look at the actual report from the actuary. So I just noted that it was different and figured that could be helpful to fund some of the things we needed to do at November town meeting.
Got it, okay. And then like the pay in class wage adjustments?
Yeah.
That won't impact like health or retirement, would it?
These are already, they're already employees of ours, so they would already be part of our health insurance if they're, well, not necessarily, if they elect not to take our health insurance, they may not, but these are existing employees who are gonna have adjustments to their pay to make them competitive with their peers. In other,
Okay,
yeah, so the adjustments are not just one person, but several people within a department who, when the consultants compared their job to others, our peer communities, found that there was a disparity in what they were being paid compared to what our peers paid that same position.
oh, sure, no, that makes sense, like, I agree with that. I'm just trying to think, and I guess, like, technically it's probably small, but the retirement benefits would probably go up too with that salary increase.
Well, for sure,
Yeah.
but they're probably already part of the retirement. I guess what I was thinking is they're already part of the retirement assessment. It would probably go up some incremental amount because they're being paid more, if you think about it that way, but the actuary does assume a certain amount of increase every year for the pay. And typically, the actuary has an estimate of increase that we never see, like 4.5% or something like that. So those things get worked out every other year when the actuary does a new calculation. So they figure out where people are and then they make some projections about what they assume, assume salaries will go up, what they'll assume for a mortality table and all sorts of things, what they assume that the age of a person typically would retire and how long they're in retirement. All sorts of factors affect that retirement assessment, what we get as the rate of return on our investments on our pension portfolio. All those things are part of that. So that's a bigger piece, not just about what people are making, but so many other assumptions built in.
Yep, no, I agree, that makes sense, so, okay, yeah, thank you.
Sorry. The last thing that I'll add is that the consultant is presenting the report to the select board on Tuesday of next week, and there's a 92-page report in the select board packet that you can keep reading.
That was gonna be my question, actually, so, thanks. It's good. Could we see the report?
Yeah.
Go look at the packet.
Any other comments on, questions on Article 4?
So that's 291 from free cash.
291.
So that'll adjust then that reserve slide that we saw from the beginning. I mean, I guess when we get it, that's not part of town meeting, but I guess on financial forum too, we'll get a revised slide for free cash
Good catch.
based on not only this adjustment, but also the amount that we just voted to use to supplement the FY24 budget.
Move to recommend the subject matter of Article 4.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Jean. All right, Mark,
Approve. Yes.
Joe McDonough,
Yes,
Josie,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
And yes, that's 8-0. And so just one quick thing too, just we should probably assign a member to give the report at town meeting. Let's go by height. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. So I have to assign Article 3. Well, I'm just gonna go how we've been voting. So Mark, you can take Article 3, and then Joe McDonough, you can take Article 4.
All right.
Yeah.
Hopefully no one is assigned to Article 5 because I believe we're tabling Article 5. Is that right, Sharon?
Sweet.
All right, I'm muted. Yes, we're gonna table it. So far, I don't have anything.
So jumping to Article 6, yeah, so I'll give a very quick overview. This article has been voted on by the bylaw committee. The CBDC voted on it on Monday. The select board voted on it already. There is some financial implication to this, I guess, which is why FinCom is on it. So essentially, in April town meeting, an instructional motion was passed in order to figure out what to do better with the money that is in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So we researched, Jackie McCarthy, who was on the select board, was one of the people that kind of led the charge on this. What we are going to present to town meeting is basically a series of steps. The first one is we're going to repeal the special act from 2001. That's an administrative task, and we're going to the second task, the second portion, which is item 2, next page, Jackie, is we're going to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 55C, that allows us basically to create a new Reading Affordable Housing Trust Fund following Mass General Law. In order to actually have that trust fund in place, we need to modify our bylaws, right? That includes that. So that is the third action. So insert the new bylaw for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and then you keep scrolling, Jackie. Action number 4 is basically the according to Mass General Law, these members are elected, or not, they're appointed by the select board, and they are appointed for 2-year terms. And the one modification that we made is that the Reading Housing Authority wanted a representative on this trust. So it's going to be one select board member, at least one select board member, one Reading Housing Authority board member, and then 3 others that will likely be appointed by Basque following our same process. And then the last action is to authorize the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees to file a declaration and certification of trust with the registry. So it is kind of a big one, but I think they logically follow in place, and this has been communicated through a long process.
So are we funding it though?
No, so this has no conversation about adding new funds to this trust. That is probably a conversation that this trust should have once it's established, but and nothing in this article talks about new monies being given to it.
So, but we're still gonna vote, because if it gets established, they will be getting money at some point in time.
Yeah, so town council essentially said that it would be the safest bet would be to have FinCom vote on this, because there are some financial items essentially. There's money in there that's being transferred and used.
And I recall from the select board meeting that there's conversation as far as thresholds, as far as what this body will do versus what the housing authority already does, and so the select board is going to set parameters for them as far as what they can and can't authorize on their own, correct?
That is correct. So if you scroll to
To go up slightly, I think.
Does
You're
the
looking for
select board
3.
really have control?
the select board has
3.3.75. So
2.75.
next end of the previous page rather.
Yeah.
So up a little bit.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, sorry, the whole
It's
page
three-
of other
it's-
responsibilities. Jeez, I'm off by a
Yes,
page.
3.3.7.5, Jackie. Sorry. One
Sorry.
more. There you go.
There you go.
So if you look at the general duties, right, it says that except that the Board of Trustees shall obtain approval of the Select Board to borrow money, mortgage, pledge trust assets, purchase, accept, sell, lease, exchange, transfer, abandon, or convey any interest in real property.
So, but is this, unelected board of trustees able to spend money on something other than an interest in real property without the select board's approval? Like say they said, oh, we wanna just, go subsidize rents for these 5 people that we know, that's just it's not really a FinCom thing, I guess I'm just concerned with the definition of what the trustees can do, because they're gonna be given a pile of money or money that's gonna grow, and they only have to go to the select board for these things, but other than that, they can spend it how they want.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of conversations in the select board about this, right? And there are many communities that have this in place, and we had the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in Concord come to the select board. You're creating this trust fund in order to have some kind of some nimbleness, if you will, right? Some ability to do things, but you don't want them to get you in trouble, if you will, right? So the I guess you know, this was where we landed. That we talked about, for example, if you spend anything over $5, you know, then you have to come to us. Or maybe it was if you spend over 10% of your funds, you have to come to us. And we had a lot of discussion about how to do that. And what we ended up agreeing on is that they should have some nimbleness, but they shouldn't commit the town's resources to something that is substantial.
Yeah, which is, I think, what they're talking about in K.
Well, and so right now, just follow, right now, it's the select board who could be spending this money, and we've had this fund for like 21 years and they haven't.
So it's not, so right now, basically the select board and the board of the housing authority have to come up with a spending plan together.
And in all the years we've had this, they've never come up with one.
And that spending plan has to go to town meeting for a vote. And if what you wanna do is not in that spending plan, right, then town meeting has to approve your spending plan, right, in order to modify it. So it is, my understanding is that it is just too much effort, too cumbersome, and to your point, I'm not sure what has happened over the last 21 years, but.
Yeah, I guess it's just, if we had one all these years and no select board has ever decided it was important enough to spend it, why is a board of trustees gonna do any better? I don't know.
Bridget?
How much money is in this trust fund right now?
There's about $450,000.
But you wanna put another 400 in, right? In another article or something?
No, that's the something since general stabilization fund. No, that's something else.
That's totally separate.
Okay.
Totally different.
So a concern I have is, right now, town meeting has spending authority. And this transfers that spending authority away from town meeting into the select board. And are there any other funds that fall? That would be a real sea change in Reading, unless I'm not aware. Are there any other funds that the select board has authority to spend that is outside of town meeting?
ARPA. Trust fund of commissioners, I guess it's kind of like that, right? The where they have a pot of money and they literally, you know, the 375, I think is another, right? The 400, they raise money and then they choose to, you know, vote how to do it.
Right, okay.
It's similar. I mean, the town meeting could choose to put money into this fund, right? But that hasn't happened to my knowledge in a long time. This is the money that's already in there. An article, I think what Mary Ann hinted at was Article
18 or something, or am I confused?
Article 18, yeah. The Smart Growth Stabilization Fund is totally separate from this.
We'll get to it tonight. Hopefully. So I had a sort of similar question to Mary Ann. So I had I didn't have quite the same concern because I see there's a list of enumerated things that this board can do. And so, like, for example, I don't see subsidizing rent on here, therefore I can't do it.
But it's say they were promoting affordable housing by keeping rent affordable.
Well,
Right.
but if it's not on the list, I don't think they can do it.
Well, I guess it depends on how broadly you interpret, let's see.
Which letter are you guys looking at?
I looked at all of them and I didn't see this.
I got what you're saying, okay, got it.
So, in fact, actually, I had a sort of a reverse question of like, what exactly can the trustees do without everything that doesn't require subsequent ratification by the select board?
That was the conversation that we had at the select board, right? I mean, you want to have a little bit of wiggle room, but not a lot that they are gonna go buy Walgreens.
I can't.
Employee advisors, consultants.
That was it. I saw E&F.
Okay.
They can hire consultants. That is not real estate and it's money they're allowed to spend.
Yeah.
So they're allowed to hire consultants, which seems like a reasonable thing to.
Can they, remember at town meeting, those of us who were here, there was a woman who stood up and talked about the poor condition of affordable housing and how there was mold growing or something. There was definitely a woman talk and wanted to know, why can't we do something about that? And I'm not even sure if I see that unless it's manage or improve real property. I don't see like repairs to existing affordable housing inventory. I mean, maybe that's an amendment beyond the scope of FinCom, and it's an amendment someone can make at town meeting.
Yeah, so these items A through R were essentially are from Mass General Law, Chapter 44, 55C, right? I mean, these were not drafted by people in Reading. These are essentially, for the most part, state general law.
Any of these board meetings would fall under the purview of open meeting law.
Absolutely.
Why is the term of office 2 years instead of 3?
Mass General Law, not sure why. Not sure why. We talked about that, how everything else is 3 years. So that is the only reason why we're modifying this
Sure.
this section of the bylaw. And maybe it's for that reason that you're really on a short leash.
Question. So there's in the neighborhood of $400,000 in this trust right now that we can and should arguably be spending to support affordable housing in Reading. There's no current plan to add money to that. Town meeting could at any future point, but as far as you know, there's no plan.
As far as I know, there's no plans to add money to this fund.
And the money would presumably go through town meeting. Town meeting would have to
It-
approve, I can't think of another
Depends on the
mechanism.
source, right?
Yeah.
But if it is town funds, it would have to go to town meeting.
Okay.
If it's a gift, if
Someone,
it's-
that's true,
yeah.
someone could dedicate it, okay, fair.
So correct me if I'm wrong, I'm still struggling with why we have to vote on this. Because every question that we've had, it has nothing to do, but is it because there is going to be 450? Once all this i's are, dotted and t's are crossed, 450 moves from someplace in the ether to this.
That sounds right to me.
Okay.
Or
Because outside of that,
Yeah.
I don't see a reason why we should vote on this.
And-
I'm thinking of, to the point that I would, because I, from a finance committee perspective, this is bylaw stuff, which is not.
Is it the
my
3376 part that the
Jill and I are
treasurer?
playing charades right
Treasurer
now.
Yes.
appointed the
I think-
custodian.
I think the reason it matters for FinCom is we advise town meeting on whether or not they should or could spend money appropriately. And we're essentially saying you will no longer have authority. We think it's a good idea to give it to the select board under this trust. I mean, we're
Yes.
for us to be advisory to town meeting and not to take a position on this seems.
Town meeting is.
You might
is-
articulate this better,
Exactly. So today, town meeting has spending authority over this money. Town meeting is gonna vote on whether or not to relinquish that authority. That seems like a town meeting financial question that we should advise them on.
Yeah, yes, exactly. You said
Yeah.
that so much
I
better.
only thought
It
that
felt-
because you said it a minute ago.
Yes, and I felt like you understood what I was trying to
Yes,
say.
I did get it. It was a very good point.
The only urgency on this, given that select board hasn't done anything for 20 years, is because there was an instructional motion.
Was maybe to clarify that, is that select board, or is that the fact that town meeting hasn't done anything with the
No,
450?
I think it's all of us, honestly.
They haven't come up with any plans.
So the select board
Getting
plus
to
the
Joe's-
board plus the Reading Housing Authority board
Already-
need to come together, and I think I'm to blame, sure, if I could convene them both and we could have a spending plan that we follow and we plan, it probably would work. But it is like our budget process is cumbersome, right? I mean, and it's probably cumbersome for a reason. We talk about it for 4 months, right? We put it in front of the select, we put it in front of you, and then we go to town meeting, we get it approved, right? And we can't really modify the budget. We have to do it through Article 4, right? And if you can imagine a board of volunteers doing that for it is a very cumbersome process, and it probably is why it hasn't worked.
Two different boards of volunteers who would have to get on each other's calendar and both think the other one's gonna move first for 20 years.
Yeah.
So am I viewing this as like an ARPA-like function where the Affordable Housing Trust is acting like an ad hoc requesting that the select board approve things? I mean, ARPA was a one-time thing, and select board had dominion because it was federal law that said that body did. So the Affordable Housing Trust is never actually spending the money that I can see, other than, okay, we have an idea, select board, approve this, and it just stays out of town meetings' hands.
That's right.
So I'm trying to think of why being nimble is important. And I could imagine some state program or grant coming up that was matching, right? So it's like suddenly the state announces that to help support affordable housing, towns can support a certain program for $10,000 and the state will match it with $10,000. But grants are open from here to here and town meeting doesn't fall in there. I don't know if that would ever happen, but that strikes me as an example of when this group could convene and say, hey, we could double our money and apply for this grant, but we have to put in half of it. I'm making that up, but I'm trying to imagine why you would need to be nimble, but I imagine there's opportunities that come along that need to be responded to quickly.
I mean, there's nimble and then there's faster than 20 years. So I think
Faster than 20 years is nimble in government.
right. And I think that's the level of nimble. I mean, this doesn't necessarily have to be for things that are, short fuse, must be, done this month, like the, kind of, thing. But it sounds like for it to be spent at all, we need a better process.
And if I could say, I mean, we saw how good RAC worked because they had a really good chair.
We were time limited.
Are you just
though.
trying to get 4%?
We knew we had to spend the money by a certain time, so decisions had to be made. This, as far as I know, the only time money has ever come out of this fund was giving 30 Haven a couple of $100K to put in a below ground garage. So developer asked us for money.
And
I think that's the only.
we lent it. They paid it back.
So that's the only time I know. I guess I just don't know. No offense to the board that hasn't been formed yet, but I don't know what they're gonna do with this much money.
This kind of creates a new recreation committee, right? This creates a new, whatever is the example, like a recreation, it's actually active and they're, the only thing they have in their mind is recreation, right? I mean, the Charles Committee, for example, right? I mean, this would create, basically, to your point, a new ad hoc group that would focus on affordable housing,
Who also has spending authority.
on their money.
But sort of subject to select board, I guess.
With a lot of
I'm
qualifiers.
sure there's,
Yeah.
I guess the only other thing, and this is not really FinCom domain, is I know we're gonna have the MBTA communities and everything coming forth where we're gonna have to develop plans for affordable housing, and I hope that if this board is formed, that they hold on to the money and see how that shakes out. Because we may have to be very responsive or, hire someone to help us plan our zoning, maybe we do that ourselves. So you wanna say no vote, we've all spoken on this, or we still take a vote because we're
No, we
telling.
should take a vote because they've asked us to take a vote, but.
But it is like.
Yeah, I'm a money guy, that's, this is a bylaw thing, this is usually when I fall asleep at town meeting.
So
Um,
Ned gets our
They're gonna stay, right?
No, it just goes to Joe,
Which
I'm glad we did this,
because I just
yeah, Joe's the one that
thanks to Jean, I can
articulated,
even
Joe
answer
Carnahan's
questions
getting this
about
one, no doubt about it.
I'll say this, I'm comfortable with this because of the open meeting law. This is a group that's gonna be doing all their work in open meetings. I think the select board is likely to put, it sounds like, some parameters. They're not gonna be able to just spend $400,000 on one project without going through the board. That's another open meeting. Everyone's gonna have to be responsible. And clearly what we've been doing isn't working, so.
No, we'll just blame the select board if something goes wrong, because they appointed them.
And the bylaw committee loved it. They voted 5-0.
Yeah.
They love it, so.
CPDC voted on it last night, or Monday, 4-0.
CPDC.
CPDC. the
How did they
community
have
planning.
input on this?
This is again, why,
They
this
just
is
made
why
us
we're
feel
weighing,
like it.
everybody's weighing in,
Okay.
that's
we're all holding hands.
nothing stops you from taking a vote saying that you
School
like
committee voted on it.
But this group
All the
says,
cool committees
I'll
already
decide
voted on it.
without select board's approval, let's just put this towards the Oakland Road project, say.
Not this month. I mean, I guess it depends. No, I don't think so. It'll probably
It
fall
still
under
needs
those
select board
categories.
approval for that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'll entertain a motion for Article 6.
Move to recommend the subject matter of Article 6 as presented.
second.
Thanks, Joe. Mark,
Yes.
Joe McDonough?
Yeah, yes.
Boy, Joe, I love that, by him and Hop. Joe Carnahan,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Ed, yes. 8-0, and Joe Carnahan is the lucky man for this one.
Sharon?
Can we revisit Article 4 and let me share my screen because I don't think we have the right version up there. I want to make sure we voted the right amount.
Thank you.
Do you mind? I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, we totally mind, but Sharon, you have the control, so.
Okay, 1 second.
You
let me-
control the money, so you get to call it.
Oh,
1 sec. Where's my share screen? Oh, down here. Okay.
We're going the wrong way.
okay. I can't.
So the fiscal 24 number, like on the version I had after I made some changes when we realized that the Parker roof was coming off, that changed slightly too, and I couldn't remember what it was. So when I saw that that wasn't the right version, I started to worry that the number that we voted for fiscal 24 wasn't correct. It's actually an increase of 247 because that 500,000 coming off, it freed up room for more capital, so I had put the Rise playground back on, and there was just a couple changes that happened as a result of that. So, and that Rise playground was like 120,000, and then we increased it by 20,000. So that was showing as a negative before because we had moved it out. I had moved it back to fiscal 24. So this is the correct number. I apologize. I don't know how we had a version control issue, but
Can you zoom in, please, Sharon?
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Can't
this
see
is,
it.
so now the playground's back, even though possibly we're gonna vote in Article 7 to look at a feasibility study that could move Rise to Killam. I still don't understand.
I'm not part of that decision, but
Yeah.
when I spoke to Joe Huggins, he's like, you know, that Killam is years out and they need that playground. You know what I mean? Like it's not gonna be built. Even if they were to do something over at the new Killam, it would be years before, he says they need it soon. So that would be a question more for Joe Huggins as to why they still think they need it. But I moved it up to fiscal 24 just because I don't know what the situation is. I'm not privy to all the details as to why they need it. But I moved it back to fiscal 24 because when Parker fell off, the Parker roof, the extra 500,000, that was on our debt plan, and it came off. It had savings associated, which meant more capital could be spent in fiscal 24. And that was one that I moved out, and he said, I wish you'd move it back in. So I can ask more questions about that, because I had heard similar things that Killam was gonna maybe include something for Rise, and if it was gonna be moving to Killam, why do this? That was my question too, but I think he would be more privy to know what the issues are that made that such an urgent issue.
Yeah, and I see that you also are, you added the card readers too in FY24, which is something that Joe presented to the school committee.
What was it that I added? I'm sorry.
The
Card
65K
readers.
for car readers.
Yes, the card readers, that was something he asked for
You're
too.
getting new school IDs right now that I thought weren't supposed to use card readers, but.
I moved them up a year because of, I think I might have had them in 25 and I moved them up. He had just asked for them this year, but I placed them in 25. When the savings happened, I was able to put them in 24.
Sharon, can you zoom in a little bit, please?
So where is?
I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Let's see, how can I do this?
I think
Under
Tom-
view.
I've got this black thing on the top of the screen and I can't see my,
that- oh, so
my,
it's
still
let's see.
unmoved.
That's what it is.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's,
Oh, thank you.
keep it at that
I'm
font
sorry.
only.
Okay.
All the Zoom stuff puts like things over your ribbons. You can't see your, you know, Word and Excel stuff as well. So I think we had voted 112, but
Yep.
really it's 247. I apologize for the confusion.
But the 247 is a balanced capital plan, correct?
It is a what?
Balanced.
Yes.
Oh, who knows Robert's Rules of Order? I think we need to.
I mean,
Do we amend?
we presumably, I mean, we voted to recommend something that is not gonna be presented to town meeting. So I think that's sort of irrelevant, and now we can have a vote to recommend this thing that is gonna be presented to town meeting.
But we voted on Article 4, we can't have two votes on Article 4.
So
I think there's like,
as amended?
I think there's, I'm gonna do some Googling, unless somebody knows the answer. I think it's a motion to reconsider.
You have to do a motion to reconsider our vote on Article 4.
Do you think? How confident are
The
you?
safest thing
I'm
is
like
to re-vote it.
85% confident. I'm not Dan Ensminger confident.
I know, that's how
Yeah,
I
I mean,
wish
we
he
definitely
was
need
here.
to, we definitely need to have a vote. Do we need to, is it a different vote or is it a reconsideration of the old vote? That is the only like point of order question here. But while Jean is Googling, so I didn't ask about card readers because my question earlier about the differences between this and the spreadsheet was prompted by the fact that I saw card readers here and didn't see it there. And son of a gun, I should have asked. Oh well. Well. So
This is Article 3, not 4, right?
Here's Article 3.
Changing rules to alter a prior action.
Oh, this feels like a Mary Ann question. It really does. I'm on Wikipedia right now.
Oh, no, well.
so
So
It
Sharon,
does look
Sharon,
like a
this is,
motion to reconsider.
this is Article 3 too, right? Am I correct?
Article 3, not Article 4. I
Okay.
apologize if I said Article 4.
Yep, no worries.
we didn't vote on that, so it's okay. We didn't vote on we haven't voted yet. So while people are Googling the point of order.
Yep.
The card readers thing, so I understand that, we had a very large building security project. This obviously wasn't part of that because it would already be part of that. Is this something that is related to that? Is this a different security improvement? Did this arise as a new need? I do see it's not listed as moved from 25, it's listed as new.
Yeah, it is essentially it is adding new doors. So it is adding electronic releases basically to more doors.
Yeah.
That didn't have them previously.
Back to the point of order.
Yep, go ahead.
All right,
Find something?
I think I did. And I'm gonna read it, because I can't summarize it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what I found. We'll see what it is.
Perfect. A matter that was voted on can be brought back through a motion to reconsider. Under this motion, it must be made within a limited time after the action of the original motion, either the same day or in the case of, don't know where, but that, in the same day, so this is good.
Mhm.
It can only be made by someone who voted on the prevailing side, so we all did, so any of us can move to reconsider. It is debatable, we can have a discussion about it.
Please no.
The making of a motion to reconsider takes precedence over all other motions and yields to nothing. So I really do think motion to reconsider is what we
Yeah,
need
the
here.
other option here, it says on this MRSC page, another approach, amend something previously adopted. If a motion was passed at your meeting, there's another approach you can take. You can move to amend something previously adopted. There are different requirements for this to pass depending on whether it's made at the same meeting, whether previous notice is given, et cetera, but you could, this is the way, for example, you can act a change to minutes that were previously adopted. Any member can move this motion, so this is just something. I move to amend the motion we passed this morning by striking the number 4,000 and inserting the number 8,000. So we could do that, but we'd have to do it line by line for all these changes, so the reconsider. But it's good to know that this is possible if it was just one number.
That is great to know. So,
But where are
And then you could move to rescind.
yeah, I saw that, I don't think we want to rescind.
our original motion though had no specifics, it just said the contents of the article as
presented.
As presented, but now it's being
But
presented.
now it's being represented.
It's being presented
So-
differently.
Article 4
This
as,
isn't how it was
as
presented to us.
updated.
as amended by Sharon or whatever.
Yeah.
Sharon, I'm sorry I'm a pain. Can you scroll down so I can see all of FY24? I'm doing my
Very
numbers
sorry
thing.
about that.
No, you're doing a wonderful
And
job.
the
I
numbers
appreciate
all
you.
line up except,
I just like to double check because I'm a lunatic.
Oh, one good reason to reconsider would be if someone has obtained new information that might change the outcome of the vote.
no, change the
Feels like
outcome.
that, it feels like that is what happened. We can't do this if we're just unhappy.
not new information, but I don't think it's gonna change the way we vote.
But it would,
So I think we move forward, unless anyone disagrees with the motion to reconsider. We revote this article as presented, and maybe Sharon or Fidel could just chat with town council, talk about how inept the town's finance committee is at Robert's Rules of Order, and just make sure that we're not in any trouble, because we're meeting again, we can always, if we did this wrong, we can always revote at the next meeting.
Or right before town meeting.
Or, yeah, but if we wanna move forward, I think reconsider.
Let's do that.
Is that good with everybody?
Yep.
All right, I move to reconsider Article 4.
Article.
I don't support that because we'd like to reconsider our recommendation of Article 3.
I remove my,
You withdraw
I
your
withdraw it.
Friendly
motion.
amendment.
I withdraw that motion. 3. I move to reconsider Article 3.
I'll second that one again.
Thank you. It's gonna be a long night.
And then we have to vote that, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Mark,
Yes.
Joe McDonough,
Yes.
Joe Carnahan,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Emily?
Yep.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Ed, yes. We have reconsidered.
Sharon, I assume that Sharon,
But now we need to
Now we need, yeah,
sorry,
so,
actually approve the revised.
so,
How
do you
do
wanna,
we-
do you wanna do the honors?
we had some- The reason I'm doing it is for the minute taker, so she's not constantly like, who made the motion?
Yes.
Move to recommend the subject matter of Article 3 as presented this second time this evening by Sharon
To town meeting.
to town meeting.
Second.
Thanks, Joe. Mark,
Yes.
Joe McDonough,
Yes.
Joe Carnahan,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Emily?
I don't think the numbers.
Oh, for real?
I got them to add up.
I must have missed one.
The numbers aren't there anymore,
I
so.
know.
Sharon, can you see the numbers again, please?
I did it
So,
in my
'cause it
head,
was-
and I came off by order of 50, so I might have missed one that I wrote down.
The playground went, so 112.
The 120 went away.
Well, so we started 112, is what we voted before. We add 120 for the playground back in,
So
right?
that's,
And then we
242.
add, the 50,000 fire passenger car 1 was moved up to FY '23. So we take 50 back away, and then we add 65 for the schools. So we add 120 that's for the playground and a net of 15 for the card reader and the passenger car, and it to 247. And everything else, this there was already,
Okay, I wrote down a 75 and 725. We're good. Yes, so I say yes. Sorry, I get nervous
long
about
vote,
numbers.
but it came out.
Such drama.
Jeffrey?
yes.
Ed, yes. 8-0.
Oh, I promised to be thorough and data-driven when you interviewed me, so here we are.
Absolutely.
Sharon, my other question was gonna be, in your version, is Article 4 the same?
Yeah, because we'd only changed numbers in FY '24.
So now you want, beautiful, thank you. Thanks, Sharon. Good catch.
On to Article 7,
Article 7.
Article 7, I think we all know what Article 7 is. I could talk about it for an hour, like. So Article 7 is the article to fund the feasibility study for the Killam School, and we are requesting that it be funded from free cash. It's been voted on by the school committee. Yep. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, we I mean, I think all of us have been
ad nauseum.
yeah, I think we've all been, close to this one, and I don't think there's any, this isn't new to us, but if there's any questions.
Just
Open it
clarify,
up.
it's 2.2 million?
It
2.2.
is $2.2 million,
2.2.
refunded out of free cash.
This'll be the easy part. It's the MSBA that will be the hard. Did you guys see the Wakefield? Well, I had a public hearing last night, their costs of their high school, not the Northeast Voc, but Wakefield High, it was 220 in the spring, it's 273 now, and MSBA is only reimbursing 22%. So hopefully we're gonna come in at the already not having any inflation surprises like these other towns
Stoneham
are having.
has-
Stoneham, Andover has had an issue, Amherst. At the Wakefield, they said with these increases, it would cost the average taxpayer something like $1,300 more a year. And they're also paying into the Northeast Vokes, that's the high school, and they're paying off their middle school still. So it's a lot.
The timeframe though on this is a couple of years, right?
Right, so that's what I'm saying,
So
hopefully
fingers crossed
whatever
the
MSBA
inflation
does by then.
stabilizes.
Could you open the packet, Jackie, and go to page 72?
Should we all go?
Since it's not the updated version, is Sharon able to share it? Or was there any change to that?
There was no change to that, no.
There wasn't any changes other than the 3 and 4.
72, what are we looking for?
What, in page 72 of your packet, essentially what we asked GNAP architects to
Oh, right,
put together kind of like a
I didn't get to this.
best case scenario. No, yeah, Jackie, page 72. Sorry.
And these are updated numbers, cause they seem very optimistic.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a basically the what this is we add them we ask them to put together, you know, kind of some guardrails, if you will, right? So some a best case scenario, worst case scenario. So scheme A is essentially a big building, 137,000 square feet, and A1 is a low range estimate on construction, so it's essentially $665 per square foot. And A2 is following that same scheme A, but a high estimated of construction at 800 square feet. And then you see scheme B is a smaller school, and it has the same a B1, which is a low construction rate, and B2 high construction rate. So essentially, what we wanted to do was give a matrix, right? I mean and just to say that the MSBA reimbursement rate that's been quoted to us is 43% for Reading. So the issue is not necessarily the reimbursement rate that the MSBA quotes. The issue is the cost of construction is through the roof. So it and the reimbursable amount is capped per square feet. So the maximum that the MSBA can reimburse is capped per square feet.
Yeah, because these feel like really optimistic percentages, and I also don't understand why a school that includes pre-K is smaller than a school that doesn't include pre-K.
I think those must be mislabeled.
That must be misleading.
That was my guess as well.
That makes sense, right? They're probably
Yeah, a bigger
The
building
bigger school
would
should
probably
say.
include more kids.
I mean, yeah, it says more students.
Yeah. So
It says 600, it has negative 65 students.
the challenge, I really appreciate the effort to try to give us some numbers, and I think it's important, town meeting's gonna ask this question, I think it's important. The bottom line is we don't know what MSBA is gonna reimburse, we don't know what construction costs are gonna be. So the way it's gonna be very expensive. That's helpful, like it's going to be an expensive project. But we have to do it. So
In that vein, do we know what the cap is, or is the cap variable year over year?
the cap is set by it is fixed.
Okay.
And it's been fixed for a long time. The legislature is trying to increase that cap. When the legislation came to the select board, they shared that the holdback to increase the cap is that they need to find something to fund that difference, and they haven't identified something to fund that difference.
Would it be a safer bet to present to town meeting if we build a 130,000 square foot building, this is what the reimbursement would be? than to try to estimate I think the
I don't
percentage
think we wanna
is-
promise that to
No,
anybody.
but
I agree.
But I think this is much more misleading than the state cap is such, depending how big the building is, we'll get X. Whereas this is saying, oh, we'll get 40% back, and then when we don't, when we turn into Wakefield and get 22, heads are gonna roll and everyone will be losing their minds.
Yeah, so just to say, I mean, the A2 number, right? I mean, so if you see the total project budget, it's $148 million. I sure hope that it is not $148 million, right? So
Don't we all?
I do think this is worst case scenario.
Well, I think when I looked at some things with Amherst or Andover, I think the $800 per square foot, and I know Amherst was building an elementary school, it was getting up there. I don't know how the costs are gonna go down. Maybe we gotta hope they don't go up more, but
I do appreciate Emily's point though, that like the 55% column in the A2 cell is you know, slightly less realistic than unicorns, I think, because it's
Yeah.
you know, it's presumably would require a Beacon Hill to come up with a crazy amount of money and raise the possible cap by a very large amount. Whereas we know what the cap is today. We could today say, okay, we know what the cap is per square foot. So for a 137,000 building, assume that much reimbursement.
Isn't that what you do in the next slide?
No, the next slide assumes 30%, right?
Yeah, but if you look
Which is
at-
close, potentially.
Yeah, but if you look at the total cost, it's even north of the 110.
Could you scroll down,
It's south of the
next
148.
Jackie?
and I thought the reimbursement rate also took into account like local wealth and local property values. When I've looked on the MSBA site, there's some factor. And you get more reimbursement if you're a poorer community, so we'd be comparing ourselves with, I guess if we say we're on par with Andover, maybe we're more wealthy than Stoneham and Wakefield.
Yeah, they told us what the rate would be if we had a project today for Reading. And it's 42%. So in this one,
So we would be.
Sharon did not use the fancy matrix. What she said is if you have a $120 million school, which, what is that number?
Percent plus
I've been hearing
cap.
$100 million and it's like, it was shocking. So when we said 120, we thought it was like even more shocking. And she just said 30% reimbursement rate. Total local funds is $84 million, and that is what the service would be.
I want to ask a question about this. So this page that we're talking about existing exempt debt service, that's library and high school, and any hypothetical debt exclusion for a senior center or Walgreens or whatever is not here, right?
That is not approved.
Afraid to ask.
That's what we do here.
Do we have a sense of what this looks like for an average taxpayer? I know with the senior center, there's discussion, there's been this sort of like $140.
How big is the average taxpayer's? How expensive is the average taxpayer's house?
$700,000. So it essentially.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
can't see.
and we Sharon asked our financial
It's really low.
planner to
$600.
lay it out in multiple ways, but the basically what
Still not going to be that.
what they did here is
So-
they did it per
It doesn't seem to
per
be
$100,000
there
of
will be
value.
some- I mean, you doubt the town will end up doing nothing for seniors.
Yeah.
So for example, in 2026, that's the only debt that we would have, right? If you have $1 million home, then the impact would be $880. $883.7.
And for how many years?
This is assumes a 30-year debt schedule.
Is that the assessed value or what is the home value?
The assessed value.
This discussion gets back to our threading the needle conversation at the financial forum. We don't want to discourage people from this opportunity. So I think it's really hard to put out numbers of what it might cost and where we really just don't
But I do think though, Emily, the one thing that I would say is I would rather set some expectations that it's not $60.
Totally fair.
To your other point.
Yeah.
You know, like, that, looking at the, at the first slide, at the grid, there's a lot of numbers that are out there. You look at total cost of the, you look at the reimbursement rate, you look at everything else. I think using this example, and Sharon, thanks again for putting this together. This $88, per home value, that's if we are reimbursed. We need a school. The other number is do the same math without the reimbursement. Now you're talking about something, and again, there's always another number to be able to compare to. And again, I said it at the forum, I'll say it again, more and more people should walk through Killam. More and more people should, understand the condition of the building. And to Jean's last point, it's something that we need to do. And so while I'm hypersensitive to scaring people off, or maybe that's a bad choice of words, they need to be educated as far as what it would be given this scenario, or given a scenario where we don't have MSBA, and still need a school. And I think that's the real comparable. And again, I think you may be off. This is an educated finger in the air, but it's better than telling someone, oh, then it's going to be, looking at what's coming off, kind of exactly from 2023 through 25, which is half that. You know what I mean? So I think that's, I think you have to set some levels of expectations.
At this point, I feel like we're giving Fidel and Sharon advice on how to sell this at town meeting, which is fine. We're happy to help.
Yeah.
And to that end, I like the framing on the I guess it's the previous page, the matrix of matrices really. I dispute which things should be shown here, like the 55% should be put on its unicorn and sent away, and maybe putting 0% in there as one of the columns. I mean, it's gonna be freaking terrifying, but like,
Well, I think that's,
and then we have another, so it's like
0, 40 fast and something in the middle.
Yeah,
Well, I
That
think
is comparable to
43
what
even,
people are
but yes.
getting now.
I think if you have
It's
one
like-
slide, it's this slide where you're more conservative on the reimbursement rate, but then you also show a line that's that's the impact per $100,000 home value. Like, I think that's your one slide.
Yeah.
As a comparison, and I do think it's no reimbursement and a conservative reimbursement, and a conservative one. I really don't. I mean, I trust, everything that we understand as far as what things are with Stone and Wakefield, Amherst, other ones today. We're 2 years out. There's a ballot question that some will debate will help. That could be the funding mechanism for schools. That's something that we could benefit from. Again, there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts that go along with that. But I do think it's, so I'm 55%, 40%, I don't know. I can't, I'm not educated enough to be able to offer a real opinion on that, but I think the 0 one is very appropriate.
Yeah, I agree, and I think this has been an important conversation because I have never viewed the vote on this article as in a vacuum. Like, we're just saying, can we use free cash to do a feasibility study? To use $2 million of taxpayer money to do a feasibility study, for me, for that not to be a waste, means I know we are now on the path towards building a new school, and I think being somewhat transparent about that's gonna be expensive. And while we don't know exactly how expensive, to Ed's point, we don't want anyone surprised 2 years later saying, oh, you didn't tell me.
Yeah.
So
I think nobody disputes the need. I have a lot of friends on, I'll call it the more conservative side of town, and they are on board with the need for a Killam. Now, whether they agree, the people I speak with, that a new Killam has to be as big as these sizes, given Killam currently has about 450 kids in it and we don't see these major enrollment growths, and you could say, do we really need to build a school to hold 735 people, even with 100 kids in Rise? Or, you know, maybe that'll be the point of a good feasibility study to come up with options, because I think people are on board, but then the idea of 2 and 3 stories and doubling it, giving our enrollment, people might step back from that.
So I think you're exactly right. I think that's the work that now has to begin. And if anything, this is an opportunity for leadership in the town to kind of say, okay, we've set a high bar of how expensive this could be. How can we bring that number down? What you know, really,
Without cutting corners.
Like what can really
certainly
meet our
without
needs?
Without cutting corners. I
But
think
it-
that's, you know, I mean, and I know that's not where you're headed.
no, but
I know,
at this
that's-
point, I almost wanna like say, you know, like, get ready. It's gonna be big and it's important. And it would be wonderful to then over deliver as opposed to going in the other direction, which
Well,
I think could be very detrimental.
And I think you both have just, you know, kind of hit on the key point that's back to Article 7, that this is, you know, you need the larger discussion, but this feasibility informs that.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's the, you know, that's the.
And this isn't the last say we have to
No,
say.
it's the-
You know, that's-
one of many.
These numbers are important though, because people will look at that in view of the other numbers in other articles that, not to pit anyone, but just to say,
Totally.
what are we
Eyes wide
asking
open.
for all at once?
Well, totally, and I think, you know, anyone that's been involved, you know, these are we are anticipating questions that we know have been asked in the past, you know, going back to the high school, back to the library, back to the override, you know, different things like, why didn't you tell me this? Why didn't, you know, like, so be transparent, show as much as you can. And I think this is, you know, exactly the path. This is a very intelligent way to be able to do it. And I think it's an educated constituency is what we need. Any other questions on Article 7?
Move to recommend the subject matter of Article 7 as presented.
Second.
Thanks, Mary Ann.
So if I look at what's actually in the packet here, it doesn't say $2.2 million out of free cash.
I believe the motion, that is held in the motion.
But, I mean, I guess I would like FinCom to specifically say, we're recommending spending $2.2 million out of free cash.
Can I take
And
it as
that's
a,
not in,
can I take it as a friendly amendment?
yes.
I'm going to, yes, Jeffrey's absolutely right. Move to recommend the subject matter of Article 7 specifically to dedicate $2.2 million to be funded out of free cash to support a feasibility study of building a new, and I'm gonna say or renovated kiln, just to keep us as broad as possible. That covers
Second.
both, right?
Thanks, Mary Ann.
Second.
She beat you to it, Jeffrey.
Okay, chief.
All right. I wrote it down though. I'll get you for the next one. Mark,
Yes.
Joe McDonough,
Yes, yes.
double yes from Joe McDonough. Joe Carnahan,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
and Ed is a yes. 8-0. Mary Ann, you do the excellent straw to have to recommend this one to.
When I recommend it, do I do it ahead of the night-long discussion or after? Before.
We always go at the beginning.
Good, so I'll be
Exactly.
more awake.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
it's gonna be a night.
Yeah, it all
But
depends
no,
on.
maybe we'll be surprised and it'll go.
Yeah, well, no, it's gonna be right after the bylaws. You should have a lot of sleepy eyes right after the bylaws stuff, right? Isn't that 6?
Yeah.
Sixes.
Maybe we can take that one out of order.
Well,
6.
Killam, they'd probably take it out of order because then they'd probably have the school superintendent there on a certain night.
There's a schedule here that says
Yeah.
Article 7 will begin on the second night, so they'll have to get through other things before.
Trying to get through 6.
So we might get to like 8 and 9.
We can get more than six.
Oh, where, was the schedule already out?
23
You just gave me a draft
Okay.
schedule, I don't know.
Article 8, was that an easy one?
The next one is Article
Us.
9.
9 is the one for us.
9 is so
It's in our packet for
Um,
this
Oh.
meeting.
Jackie, so Article 9,
This is
hopefully
fast.
it's not.
Ten, I got it.
This is the senior tax exemption. This is the third round of the senior tax exemption.
So we have to keep renewing
This
it,
is,
yeah.
there is no mass general law that allows us to do this, so every time that we do this, it needs, needs a special act. So this is essentially just renewing the version from 2019. However, there is one slight catch, and the assessor is trying to figure out how to deal with it. In the economic development bill, and if you read the background, in the economic development bill, which hasn't been passed, but we think this might be passed any minute now, it raised the circuit breaker for state income tax from 1,170 to 2,340, and essentially the mechanism that we use as a means tested is the circuit breaker. So if you qualify for the circuit breaker, then you qualify for this. So the all to say that we're tracking it to see if it is going to be approved. It might we might need to change the fixed reimbursement rate. Sorry, the fixed income rate. So if you scroll down, Jackie, to 2019 to 2022, essentially in that version, in the first version, we basically said 50 to 200, an annual range, to be voted by the select board. What we found is that it was really hard to kind of pin that every year. So in 2019, it was fixed at 150%. And in this version, what originally, when we were drafting this article, we thought that the economic development bill was passed, and we fixed it at 100. So we might modify the motion in town meeting floor to see, basically do it at a range from 100% to 150, depending if the economic development bill passes before November 14th. I'm not sure if I explained that right. It seemed complicated.
Gotcha. Questions or comments on Article 9?
Because effectively, going from 1170 to 2340 is more than doubling. So that's going from 150 to of the smaller number to 100 of the much larger is an increase. Although I think that's probably appropriate, but I want to make sure I understand that right. Okay, cool.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, cool.
Move to recommend the subject matter of Article 9 as presented.
Thanks, Emily. We'll vote. Mark?
Yes.
Joe McDonough?
Yes.
Joe Carnahan?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
And Ed, yes. That's 8-0. Jean gets Article 9.
Article 14 is the next one. It's debt authorization from the MWRA Local Water System Assistance Program, LWSAP. Basically, this is the no interest loan program, right? That the MWRA has to upgrade water mains. Anytime this money is available, we definitely want to use it. So in the background, you'll read essentially that what we're asking for is authorization to basically use this next round of funding, and every year essentially we get the same amount. I'm sure you've seen this article before. What we do is we go to the November town meeting. We get an approval to get the loan, and then we then go to the select board and have that voted again after town meeting votes on it.
Any questions or comments on 14? Easy one, free money.
Exactly. Move to recommend the subject matter of Article 14 as presented.
Second.
Thanks, Joe. We'll vote. Mark?
Yes.
Joe McDonough?
Yeah. Yes.
Joe Carnahan?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Emily?
Yep.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I actually back up? Why is it that we don't have to say anything about the National Guard exemption for Article 10? I mean, that's a
You
financial
certainly
thing, right?
won't vote on it. You vote on it, like, the town council did not request you to vote on it.
Well, you have 14.
Sweet. I like the easy ones.
This is I think it's because it's adopting a mass general law. It's not necessarily, mass general law gives the ability to for the Board of Assessors to do this. But it's basically, it's a bylaw thing, like we're asking town meeting to adopt mass general law, chapter 59, section 5.
But ultimately, it'll reduce the amount of tax income, right? Because the assessors will now have the ability to.
Well, they already do, because it's sort of if town meeting votes no, the Board of Assessors will continue to follow the law, which presumably they're already doing.
Yeah, so
But this makes our law the same as the state law that they were already following.
yeah,
I see.
so
Okay. So I thought the state law just enabled us, like the senior tax credit, right? Where there's a state law that lets us do it, but we still have to vote to do it. But you're saying this one is, the state gives the assessors that power regardless of whether we.
yes, so there is nothing in state law that allows us to give seniors a tax credit, right? So this is why we have to go request the home rule petition process. Article 10 is to adopt an already established mass general law. That basically what this says is that any member of the military could apply for an exemption of their tax rates if they are deployed abroad. So if you are a member of the National Guard, right, or you're a reservist, and if when you go overseas on a deployment, then you can apply for that exemption to the Board of Assessors. It's not a fixed number. You know what I mean? It depends on how many residents of Reading are in National Guard that get deployed, right? I mean, it just gives the Board of Assessors that authority.
All right.
It's not a fixed, like, it could be 1 year, it could be 4, 1 year it could be nothing. You know?
Is there a financial implication, or is it like the senior income tax credit where it gets, the exemption ends up being paid by everyone else in time paying a thousandth of a cent?
Essentially, is that, I mean,
So it's not like it's lost revenue, it just means they don't pay it, so everyone else pays a little bit more. So that could be why FinCom doesn't weigh in, that it's net neutral financially, I'm guessing. Not in the lawyer's head.
I did actually look up the Mass General Law. I was wrong. It looks like the assessors can't grant this abatement until the town says yes, because it's upon the acceptance of this section by city or town. So, but yeah, then when the Board of Assessors does start doing that, it doesn't actually cost us any money, or rather, I mean, it costs us as taxpayers money, it doesn't cost the town money. But it's, you know,
yeah, well,
I mean, talk about
Victor-
supporting your troops, like.
Victor will present this in the town meeting, and what he says is that this has been in place in Wakefield for a long time, and he's granted the exception 4 times. You know, so it is basically members of the military that are deployed while they are deployed, they can receive a tax break.
All right, sorry for that. So
Yeah. So Article 15, I feel like that's another one that at least I've talked ad nauseum. It's the Liaison and Morgan program. We received a $2.25 million grant from the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness 2.1 grant, and it requires a 25% match. So what we are requesting is the authorization to borrow $1 million.
it says it's reimbursement, so we're supposed to cover the full original costs and prior to reimbursement.
Yeah, it's reimbursement within the same year, right? So it's like most grants essentially.
The $3 million request. ...
Yeah.
But you just said 1 million.
What we are asking for is $1 million to be borrowed, that we will not get reimbursed, right? So how it works essentially is the MVP grant is a 2-year project, right? And anything that we spend in the first year, we submit for reimbursement, and ideally they send us that money before September when Sharon closes the books, right? And therefore it's a revenue neutral. Like if we pay a contractor $1 million, we submit that receipt, and the state gives it back to us up to $2.1 million. So the goal is to get that reimbursement in the same fiscal year, in order to have it not impact free cash.
So, but this thing's gonna cost $3 million, we're only getting two.
The thing is gonna cost $3 million, and we are getting $2.1 million from the state.
Perfect, that's what I thought, okay.
This is the one that we put forth 77K of ARPA money, but that's just a drop in this whole thing.
I was trying to figure out the 25% number, because obviously the 900,000 gap between 3 and 2.1 is not 25%. But okay, so I see. So if it hypothetically, if it came in at only 2.1 million, the town would be responsible for 25% of that, which is way less than $1 million. And then if it comes in at 3 million, then the town is responsible for the difference, which is more than 25%. Is that
We are responsible at a minimum of
25%? Right. It's 25% or whatever the difference is between the cost and 2.1, whichever is greater.
We are asking for $1 million. Obviously, if this project were to be a $5 million project, we would have to go back to you and Tommy to get more money.
Okay, no, that makes sense. The interplay of the 25% or the gap between the actual cost and 2.1, whichever is greater. That makes sense.
Yeah, we have one more pot of money out there, and that is a federal earmark request through.
Right.
We haven't heard on it, and who knows?
Right, so now,
Get off work for 6 months.
here, in the background, it says the $3 million request. Where do I see that $1 million? To the extent that we're gonna vote, FinCom, recommends $1 million, where's that number?
Similar to the Killer School, it's in the motion. So the motion will be to authorize $1 million,
Debt.
which is of debt to borrow. And it's in the capital plan, I guess, in theory.
I guess it's always, we're hearing it all here, but I think will be confusing for town meeting members who get their warrant and don't see the numbers in it. And then wait, and then have to go look at that separate document Laura puts up with the motions to say, there's the numbers.
Yeah, we'll do presentations. We'll do a recording, obviously, of all the articles ahead of time, like we did before. And the motion motion document is sent typically 2 weeks ahead of town meeting as well.
Any other questions on Article 15?
Recommend the subject matter of Article 15 as presented,
You should mention $1 million.
which involves going to debt for $1 million to support this project, which is hard to pronounce.
Second.
Atta girl, Marion, nice job, thank you.
Liaisons.
Thanks, Jean. Mark?
Yes.
Joe McDonough?
Yes.
Jim Carnahan?
Yes.
Marion?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
And Jeffrey?
Yes.
And Ed, yes, that is 8-0. Jeffrey, you have this one.
Great. Now we go to Article 16, which is for taking the Haven Street project from 25% conceptual design to 100% design. In the background, you'll see kind of like a scope of work of what it is, where the work is happening. But it's mostly on Haven Street and the area in front of the depot, and there on a website there's a lot of like graphics, conceptuals, but essentially it is making Haven Street look more like Main Street, like nice white sidewalks, lighting, pedestrian lighting, areas to to congregate and things like that. We believe that it is an economic development project. There's two potential funding sources that are out there for it. One is in the transportation bond bill. There is $3.75 million towards this project, but that has to be authorized by the next administration. There is a MassWorks program that we are shooting for to apply for, which would provide up to $5 million, but typically the grant is between $3 and $5 million. So what we are asking for is for $750,000 in order to complete design to 100%, public engagement, and grant application assistance.
Quick question on this one.
Sure.
In the event that the funding doesn't come through, so we spend the $750 on the design study, I imagine this is something that could be implemented in phases. Wouldn't it? So even if we didn't get all the funding to do it all at once, that feasibility study isn't wasted. You say, okay, we can't do it all at once, but we'll do this part then. Wonderful. This is very exciting.
So I'm gonna have maybe the opposite point of view, but this is like, this and polystyrene are the two articles that bother me and this warrant, but I'm not opposed to this, I just feel like there's too many other things in flux between the 40 Rs that are all going in on Haven Street and whatever rezoning we're gonna have to do, possibly related to MBTA communities. I feel like this is a good idea, but it should wait. That's just my personal opinion. I don't wanna spend money on a design that might have to be changed if we have to rezone a lot of things for MBTA communities. I've looked through design online, I can see it looks like it's taking away, this stuff going on in front of 25 Haven, a project that's still in flux before CPDC, that some parking spots are removed in front of it. I just feel like the design could be changed based on the 40R, what's going on and what's coming, and MBTA communities, so I'm probably not, this is gonna be like my one no vote in the whole time I'm on FinCom, because I think this just should be tabled and wait, and that's just, I agree it could all be better, but I feel like that area is just in flux. I'm repeating myself, sorry.
Yeah, there's one reason why we're kind of rushing this right now.
Is there a money reason, so you can convince me?
There's absolutely one reason. We need to meet the MBTA community's guidelines in order to qualify for MassWorks grants. So if we were to not meet the MBTA community's guidelines, which I think a few months ago was quite a possibility, we wouldn't qualify for MassWorks grants. So we want to in order to qualify also, we need to tie it into actual development that is happening while the project is going on. Like we can't say, oh, we're gonna rebuild Gold Street and eventually we're gonna have a lot of growth. It needs to be tied into growth that is already permitted and happening. So on Haven Street, our link is gonna be Chute Street, where essentially we're gonna try to tie this economic development project to an actual development, housing development that is happening on Haven Street. So 2 years from now, when Chute Street is built, there's no more projects on downtown, and we haven't met the MBTA communities legislation, those grants just simply won't be on the table for us.
Okay, I do think that there will be more developments downtown, because that seems to be not stopping. But there's also, you've got Chute Street, but then 25 Haven is not even approved yet right there. So if you're designing something in 25, I guess I just don't want the design money to be wasted.
Yeah, I mean, we will be designing for probably a year, right? I mean, that's how long the design takes, and then construction is probably another 2 or 3 years away. So even if this were to be approved in November, we're talking 3-4 years ago, 3-4 years from now.
This is a suggestion inspired by Marianne's question. So there's a diagram in the warrant report that shows the streets and does not show the buildings. And given questions that people will have about, well, wait, which parts of this have already been, because an awful lot of the adjacent, I mean, a lot, but I'm not sure how much, which is why I'd love to see it, of the frontage against these streets has already been approved or is already before CBDC, and it's probably just a matter of time. And so, I mean, this runs in front of Ace Flats, this runs in front of 30 Haven, this runs in front by Shute Street, this runs by Postmark. So yeah, that's for people who are wondering whether this area is going to change further. I mean, my impression is that if we have to build a hajillion more buildings in order to comply with MBTA communities in the future, we can't put them here because we will have already just built the Postmark here, and it won't be in, it might be a block over.
Yeah, and we do
Somebody
hear
lives
that,
2 blocks over, I'm conscious of this.
we do hear that Haven Street is dark, it's not very inviting, it's not very, it doesn't draw people to it.
But, the question about is this developed already, or is it in the process of developing, or is it going to be developed? That's a fair question, and literally putting the pictures of the buildings on the diagram would help.
Yeah, like I know this other little flatiron shape that, this eastern bank is here, like the building turned over there, I don't know what's happening with it, just like with 25 Haven, that turned over and sat, and then all of a sudden
Right.
40R appeared, so I just expect more.
Or down there where it's the liquor store and the body shop or whatever, that I suspect will not remain as it is today forever. So that probably will change in the future, if I had to guess.
Devil's advocate, is there ever a time in a downtown area where there isn't change in the next 3 years? I mean, and I hear your point, there might be excessive change in this area, so I hear that, but it's never gonna be static for 3 years. There'll always be turnover and new building and. But it's a good point, it's a fair point.
Any other questions on Article 16?
Can I ask a dumb question? So having the conceptual design, like a solid design plan, is the gateway to the grants, not actually acting on those plans.
100%,
Cool,
shovel-ready projects,
okay,
that's what we need.
okay.
So
I
we
was-
can, we
I was
can
on
design
Mary
this
Ann's
and not,
team at the outset.
we can design this and not build it if suddenly we have things that are gonna further change the streetscape. And I'm thinking like traffic and parking, cause that seems to be the issue, and if things go in there that end up altering a traffic flow, and then the design was relying on an earlier traffic flow. Okay.
Move to recommend the subject matter of Article 16 as presented.
Second.
Thanks, Emily. I'll go to the vote. Mark?
Yes.
Joe McDonough?
Yes.
Joe Carnahan?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
No,
Jean?
just gotta do it,
Emily?
don't believe.
Reluctant, yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Ed, yes, 7-1.
Gotta spice it up.
I respect a dissenting vote, I really do.
gonna
I
say.
really
I've
do.
I've thought about it even before I
Yep.
came in here,
It's a good thing.
I'm concerned.
Article 17 is the slam dunk.
Mark the roof.
Not gonna.
We already talked about it.
Yes. Article 17, right, so
Do we even need to vote on it if it's gonna be tabled?
nice,
Sweet.
easy.
Article 18, so there's the one, Mary Ann, that you hinted to earlier. So,
Yeah, I
so
was a little confused by, because of the 414 number. Looked like the
It's
number
like the same
that-
number.
I think I was confused because I thought it was, isn't 414 the same as which just happens to be in the Affordable Housing Trust? Maybe I
yeah,
mixed them.
this is a stabilization fund, so it's a
And it has smart growth stabilization
smart growth stabilization fund.
as opposed to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Yeah, totally different. This is, Mass General Law allows us to create any kind of fund, right? We can create a parking fund, we can create basically, you put money in there that has one designated, spend, area. Town meeting still has to approve that spend, and it requires a 2/3 vote to spend it, to allocate it. So,
Good, Joe.
So, have we ever spent any money from this fund and if so, on what, and if not, what would we spend it on?
So we haven't spent any money on it. Yeah, there is $503,000 in that fund.
Yep.
for monies received from 2008 to 2015.
Yep.
And essentially, in the next paragraph, you see that this next payment is $414,000.
Yep.
And it is for Postmark, Ace Flats, Rice 475, 14 Chapin Avenue, and it's calculated essentially as $3,000 per housing unit. $3,000 per housing unit. And it is a density bonus, and it can be used only for capital expenditures.
Okay.
Capital
That's-
project. It can be used for operating funds.
But it's not scoped to particular types of capital, like expenditures. I mean, granted, just a moment ago, we talked about, a capital expenditure to improve the street right in front of these developments.
Could be used for that.
Okay.
So then there'll be 917,000 in here?
That's correct. Once it's moved. And
Who spends it?
town meeting. This requires 2/3 of town meeting approval.
That's why it's just not spent.
Clarifying question. So there's $400-ish thousand in free cash right now. You mentioned that it could only be used for capital. Is that true if we do not recommend this and it stays in free cash?
I mean, I guess Sharon can answer that question. I mean, we can only use this money for capital. So that's not free cash.
So
Yeah, I don't think it could be used for anything but capital.
even
I
if
think
we,
that we put it aside in a smart growth stabilization in the past to ensure that we didn't commingle it with free cash.
that's what I'm asking. Failure to act on this means the 400,000 stays in free cash. And my question is, if we went down that road, are we still only required to spend that 400 in capital, or does that restriction happen when we move it into the fund?
No, that restriction happens when the
Which
state
we
says
do
no.
regardless, yeah,
So even though it's in free cash, we already have this limitation.
yes.
This just makes it easier to keep track of.
Yeah, I don't like that it reduces flexibility, but it doesn't sound like it realistically reduces flexibility at all.
We didn't have the flexibility
Yeah,
going in.
exactly.
Yeah, and it's capital. It could be a capital to buy a fire truck. It could be a capital to plenty of capital we gotta go around.
So what is the reason for doing this?
It's I imagine that the state doesn't want to give us money that creates a need, a dependency on operating funds. So they restrict this money to use for capital only. This is the state, when they hand us the money, it's a restriction that comes with the money.
What's
So
your-
they're giving us 414,000?
They are giving us 414,000.
So it's neutral to free cash then?
Or, no, it's already, but it's,
It'll come out of free cash.
I think they gave it to us. It's currently in free cash. It just makes, I don't know, Sharon's job more confusing because having it in free cash, because it's in free cash, but it's not so free.
So we're not supposed to use it for anything but capital, so putting in the stabilization makes it so it's not commingled with free cash, and we're able to recognize that this money has specific uses that we need to use it for. And it doesn't get lost in the shuffle, so to speak. Typically, what we do when we get this money is we move it at town meeting, and we had planned on moving it in April. And it didn't come in until just after town meeting. It came in at the end of April. So, so normally we would do it before it closes to free cash, so you wouldn't even see it go to free cash. It's just coming in as revenue, and then we transfer it to the stabilization. We weren't able to do that because we didn't have it in April when we last met.
And the fact that it requires a 2/3 vote is a pretty high bar. I'm confident town meeting has to very strongly support however it is spent, so that's a good thing.
Any other questions on 18?
Move to recommend the subject matter of Article 18 as presented.
Second.
Thanks, Joe. Go to the vote. Mark?
Yes.
Joe McDonough?
Yes.
Joe Carnahan?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Emily?
Yep.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Ed, yes.
That was the last vote required. If you don't mind, just some information on two other articles that have come up, obviously in conversations. One is Article 19, which is the purchase of the property formerly known as Walgreens. The select board met on it on October 11th. We have another agenda item for October 25th. But my sense is that the select board is going to table that article for this town meeting. It will not be presented, which is why, there's no sense in voting an article that will be tabled. The other article that will likely be tabled is Article 22, and I know that Jeff has questions about it, which is Green Communities Renewable Energy Surcharge. It will allow us to become a green community, which is a state designation that then allows us to apply for grants, community grants. That will likely be tabled as well.
Is that because the state hasn't gotten the implementing regulations or something like that
Correct.
for town?
100% correct.
And for senior center, was it because we don't have the UMass report or things like that?
It's things like that. I think there's two main drivers. One is the select board wants to fully negotiate with the property owner
And the due diligence
on all
and
details.
stuff, yeah.
Also diligence, doing inspections, doing an appraisal, and they don't feel that they can get that done effectively by November 14th.
Yeah, I heard mentioned that maybe they'd call a special town meeting between this one and the next one.
I think that's the idea. If everything works out. Obviously.
Fantastic.
Approve some minutes?
We are through that. Let's get out of here.
I like these minutes.
It was the last time we
No,
were
financial forum 2 and future meeting agendas.
Oh,
We're
wait,
supposed to
what
do-
page is that on?
No, so I just scrolled up to the top to our agenda, which is page 1 of our packet.
Yep.
Okay.
So we're gonna have a financial forum.
Yep, so the financial forum is scheduled for next Wednesday. Financial forum 2, yes, it's in the Reading Library.
Yes. Ooh, okay.
Just some, I cannot attend. I have a work conflict, so I won't be in attendance. But let's still kind of go through. I just want to make sure folks know where I let Fidel and Jean know this morning when I figured out that I screwed up the my work schedule.
So
Good.
I wanna double check the thing about the calendar, Google Calendar invitation that
It says the high
Jackie
school.
sent us says high school library.
It is at the high school, the Scatini Library.
Oh, it's the school library. I'm sorry, my bad. I said the wrong
Okay,
thing. I'm not gonna be there anyway, so
I was gonna say-
yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll send you anywhere you wanna go.
Yeah,
It's a
I'm
question.
sorry about that.
It's a
Yep,
que-
sorry about that. Yeah,
it's-
it is.
It's
Yeah,
a
it
difference
is.
between a 1-block walk and like a 5-block walk for me, so like, and we don't have sidewalks yet in the high school direction, so
Sorry.
as we
Opposite
discussed
for me,
earlier.
it's a nice little walk to the woods to the high school.
Yeah, no, you're right there. Still no sidewalk though, so gotta fix that.
But yeah, so kind of agenda items for the financial forum. I mean, we can discuss. I mean, obviously the stuff from Marion and the RAC committee, but
do you want a presentation or my report? I mean, I don't, I don't think there was a financial an agenda for, what else is happening?
Will the select board vote before the financial forum?
Yes, Tuesday night, and Mark indicated to me, cause I was gonna try to be there in person, that it might not be till like
yeah, here's-
9:50 PM, it's gonna be late.
sounds late.
And so, and there could be some, last minute surprise, who knows, I don't know. I assume they would approve everything, but anything can happen. So, what do you want from me for the financial forum? Do you want me to stand up and explain my memo, or just show the allocations, or just include them? I'm fine with speaking. I can include, like I said earlier in the meeting, I can include the pie chart and the overall allocations, and I could just touch on, without reading the memo, I could touch on, what our process was.
I think,
I can try to turn like my questions into bullets and just kind of speak off the cuff, and if anyone has any questions, they can.
Yeah, I think that'd be really helpful. I
Think
think
so.
a high level overview, definitely the pie chart.
Oh, you haven't seen my memo, cause I
No.
only
Not.
sent it to Ed.
No, I do wanna
it's
see it.
excellent.
I've heard all about it. I like the idea of a high level, like this is how we spent the money, a little bit about the process, and to Joe's point, I'd really like to hear about what didn't get funded, what town needs emerged in
Okay,
the
so
process.
that's a whole other thing, cause my memo to town meeting does not have the what didn't get funded, cause there's a lot. Like I put down what we voted on, what was requested. I mean, there are a few cases, mainly the private requests. For example, like the Rotary, which you're associated with, we allocated 1 year's worth versus 3 years worth.
Got it.
And I don't wanna try to recapture the entire board's rationale
Oh,
on
no,
that, because that,
no,
I don't know that I'll represent all the views.
I see what you're saying though, that, yeah, okay.
I mean, I think we got more requests than we wanted, and I could, maybe just,
I mean, it sounds like the value we're trying to get here is sort of insight into town needs. And so without necessarily knowing, like needing to know, well, first not like, I don't think we need to cover the private ones.
so what was unfunded?
What were the unfunded town needs?
There's
They
not,
can even be categories.
Maybe.
it's not that many.
Okay,
Yeah,
alright.
I mean, I think of like the extra tree
Yeah,
cutting.
I mean, there were, and, Birch Meadow could have taken more. I think there were a number of things that could have done with more money. We gave them some, but we didn't give them.
Like Birch Meadow, the water, the trees. I mean, the schools didn't ask for more than 2 million,
Yeah.
that could have been something.
Yeah.
And I don't even feel like I need a bullet of like, here were the exact requests, or like the themes, like forestry, it was important, tree cutting was important.
I think just
I
recreation.
just wanted a
Like, we
sense
don't
of what
have-
the,
yeah.
what
Like,
the,
we don't capital plan for the town forest in general. I mean, like, is that a thing we should be aware of or conscious of?
It was something, it's not, I don't know about capital plan, but it's necessary work that had to be done because the trees are dead and they could fall on people and cause us a lawsuit if we wanna like think about it that way. I think I realized how much unpaid work we're getting from volunteers in our town forest building boardwalks, and they're not asking for very much money. They're basically building boardwalks almost with donated boards and hardware, and so until they spoke that way, I didn't realize that. I thought the town.
I knew the Boy Scouts did a lot of, their various projects to, do some section of it. But, yeah, I wasn't aware that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the Trails Committee figures out what the Boy Scouts should do. It employs their hands, I think, for some of it, but yeah, they also do a lot themselves.
Joe,
I mean, Mary too, like, I think too, if you mention like the total dollar amount requested, but to the point, Joe's point too, like, in terms of what wasn't funded, like, there was a big chunk, right, like, depending on how you look at the total amount requested, wasn't like up near 17 million if you figured in the full request, right, for essential worker, premium pay, right?
and some of the things that we all had individually, I mean, Mark Doxer had his senior center money, there was dog parks and food trucks and all kinds of,
Solar. So, didn't Chris bring up solar panels on the
roof or something.
roof?
Yeah, and food truck for.
But I think we heard from private groups, and I don't know that it's a need that the town can meet. Like we heard about, significant food pantry need that I imagine is only getting worse. And they need space. And it's too bad, like, the old senior center doesn't have a working kitchen, because you start thinking about, well, there's private needs, but can there be does the community have interest in public-private sharing of space to help meet those kinds of needs? If we have unused space that could be used for storage, for example, at least make use of it.
I think that sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, I can show what we chose. I think people would like to know that we aligned with the survey and we learned about these other needs. I'll try to keep it to like 4 to 5 slides or less, and not too much on it.
Sounds great.
I think that would be great.
Yeah. Hey, and just an aside, like, I don't know, for folks that didn't see all the RAC meetings, you know, I just personally, like, I think Mary Ann did a great job as a chair, so.
Well,
I
thank you.
mean, should be recognized, so.
I had a great support team, and if any of you watched any of the premium pay, mathematical, formulas and everything, that was a work of art that I feel like it could still be evolving. Because you can't please everybody. So what else is gonna be on the financial forum besides RAC?
So I think, it's kind of stealing, because there's probably two people watching this at home. Some of the stuff that we talked about as related to some of the analysis that was done specifically for Killam. That was new information for us, looking at, kind of projected costs, reimbursement rates.
That'll be a good topic.
Yeah, I think that'd be something good for,
It'll save time at town
and I think
meeting.
it'll be good to do it in a forum that I'm not at. I think
Yeah.
it'll be excellent. We can spend some time talking
Oh.
about it.
That was right.
Two watching, don't tell Ed.
No,
Well,
I
some people may
think
be
it's a
watching
great
on
topic.
cable.
Right. Is there less than one person watching?
No.
We know Bill Brown is watching, hi Bill.
There are two, on YouTube, there are two people watching.
Oh, there we go, we'll take it.
But there's people on cable.
Marianne's right.
There could be more, and then who knows, the reruns are fascinating. But-
We don't even have Bob Holmes here tonight, well, he'll watch
No,
us.
exactly. And then and additionally, depending on what happens from the select board, it's probably an update as it relates to recalc study and senior
Yeah.
center as well. I think that
Sort
would
of the
be.
future of that article.
Yep, that would
So,
be interesting too.
Does Mark know that, or someone that they would present on that, or are we supposed to present on that?
Fidel says yes.
Fidel's not.
Okay.
Get marked.
Yeah. No.
Get marked
You're missing a good one.
I am, and I'm bummed. But yeah, so I think, but I think outside that, the only other thing I thought of, and I know it's something that we've talked about, and again, I don't know the exact terminology for it, but because I don't necessarily think it's a strict finance committee thing, but it's tangentially related as a capital committee. Kind of a capital improvement, kind of one that's
Yeah.
specific, to that, and, again, something, analogous to, kind of a subcommittee that just, that is looking, there's a lot of questions that inevitably come up in between forums and in between town meetings, a lot of questions around capital and the plan, and I think this is a committee that's close to it, but yet we still find things, and Jeffrey, I think both you and Joe mentioned, the different things that in comparing to the spreadsheet, I think, having a committee that looks at that and maybe has a different way to be able to present that, outside of a 170 row spreadsheet, what I think is, that would, having some process around that, I know that's something that, the select board has talked about, and I think that's something that's, would be, it's bigger than, than us, but I think it's a good topic.
It's a good forum to discuss it. A lot of communities have such a body.
Exactly.
So it's worth talking about.
Yep, exactly. I think some folks have already done some research on what exists in other places. I'm sure I was tasked with doing something I haven't, so it's a good thing I'll be missing that one.
Wonderful.
But I think that's another thing to be able to. That was the only other thing I thought would be something that's kind of topical for.
We're gonna put the guidance that we voted on
I just know
tonight
that's not
as
you.
part of it too, or is that just gonna be inherent in the budget process?
Yeah, I'm sure that's something that we could report back.
Actually, it's a good point.
Yep. Spending guidance. It would be good because the schools are there, so it'd be good for them to, I'm sure they'll hear about it before then, but yeah, that's something we should talk to Tim as well. Any other ideas for the forum? And those are the ones that I had off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Considering that we're staring at 3 hours now for this meeting.
And then,
Man, I need to tell you all about conscom meetings.
would your sheet in here about the upcoming, all the budget meetings be part of the financial forum thing? As one thing to throw in the end, or is that just for our information?
I think that's just for us.
Okay.
And then, so then we don't have another, actually, sorry, and I don't have the meeting schedule in front of us, but then we don't, outside of next Thursday, we don't meet again until town meeting,
That's correct.
unless we need to vote on something.
Oh, yeah,
the first
that, just thinking about the financial form, I also just remembered.
Yep.
RAC is meeting 15 minutes ahead with a virtual, those of us who could make it, just to approve the minutes of our last meeting. That's not really part of the agenda, but you'll notice we're called to order on the town website for this 15-minute meeting to approve our
On,
last minute.
on next Wednesday?
On the, yes, on the
Oh, nice.
financial form, just before it, so
Gotcha.
RAC members will be here early.
Financial forum Wednesday or Thursday?
It's Wednesday.
Wednesday.
thought
Did I
I
misspeak?
thought it
It's
was on Thursday. That's
Wednesday
why-
the 26th,
That's why I screwed it up.
It's on the 26th, then great.
I thought it was on the 27th.
So if there were any unpaid bills, we'd be hearing, that would be the only thing. If some
Yeah, and I
new
think
one
we-
came unearthed, and then it would,
Yeah,
we'd
I
approve
mean,
it right before the first.
yeah, so the unpaid bills, or if there's anything like, again, what did we do tonight? I've already blocked it out of my mind as far as we
Let's
consider.
say there was a last minute request from
Yeah,
FinCom reserves or something.
Yeah, so if there's something that we have to amend, we'll do it.
Trash
tonight.
contract, you know.
Special pay.
Too soon.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's,
Recycling is still out.
we could talk, you could talk trash with the financial forum, that would be great. No, that, by the way, if you wanna get asses in seats, bring up trash.
Well, you
and
know,
we can talk
though,
about
there may be
trash.
an implication of DPW overtime or something that is gonna come up.
Definitely.
Well, and you're hiring vendors too, you said, you
We
said,
hired vendors, yep.
yeah.
You rented dumpsters and
Yep.
I mean, and that's, unexpected expense
hopefully
that
that
we'll hear,
can,
we'll hear about
we
that.
don't know the legal thing that could be charged under the contract or
I think the
something.
lawyers will definitely work on that.
Rolling up the shirt sleeves on that one as we speak. Good, all right, well then, I think that's, I mean, and again, and probably more to come, kind of later on this week, I'd say, and we'll get, kind of formalize that agenda and get it out to everybody and make sure that everyone has it. I'll help finalize that with Jean and Fidel and folks.
So let me back up, so if the meeting's Wednesday, and so we need the slides by Monday morning, or Thursday or Monday morning, so I'll get them while it's still fresh in my mind anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, you can parse your doc.
Right, that's
You
what
know what I mean?
I'll,
Yeah, and then you have the ability to editorialize that. I can't say it, it's too late.
right, no, it
Um,
would just be supplementing a few of the a
Yeah.
slide with the
Your
noteworthy,
talking points will be different.
unfunded
Yeah.
ones, but I'll do it well, since I was just working on the other one.
Yeah, you can, your
So,
talking points can be different.
Tomorrow's
than
already
yours.
Thursday,
Yeah.
and then Monday,
Good, all right, well then I think that kind of covers off and we can go to the last item on the agenda, which is the meeting minutes from the 21st.
Move to approve the September 21st, 2022 FinCom meeting minutes.
A little presumptuous, but,
Well, no, you
do I-
second, then we discuss.
Okay, yeah, someone can, do I second? Can I second?
Knock yourself out.
I'll second that, then we can discuss, go ahead, Joe.
So, Marianne, you tried to call RAC to order, but then realized that it hadn't been posted, right?
yeah, I saw that, and I know, I saw it, like, I arrived at the meeting at 8:10, which is about right.
Yeah.
Cause I was coming from the high school presentation, and then RAC members were there, I think the issue was, like, I remember Jeff reminding me about that, but that as long as we didn't discuss any RAC business, we weren't posted, but we weren't violating anything if we didn't discuss
that's
anything,
what
we
Tom
were
said.
just present.
That's what Tom said.
So you were called to order, but you couldn't with an empty agenda, so you couldn't discuss anything? I thought that's an even weirder rules of order question.
Well, yeah, so I guess, I thought that you were gonna call to order, but then Tom said, we're not posted, so that you didn't.
didn't
call.
You
Can't call.
you didn't
Right,
call
can't
it,
call
because you
order.
weren't posted.
Right, so I think that line just needs to be dropped from our minutes because you didn't actually call the meeting to order because
You didn't have an agenda and you couldn't.
you.
Yeah, I think I spoke to it and then someone said something.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't realize all the I guess the RAC members all could have been there.
Yeah, you had a quorum if you were posted.
Right, because there were select board members there too.
You had
They did post and they did call order.
Can we just delete that sentence? Can we consider that a friendly amendment if Mary Ann is okay with it?
Yeah, I'm fine with it, cause then we also, no one spoke to any RAC business, so even if we were there, it would just be like if we were members of any public body attended another meeting unrelated to them.
Exactly.
Cause it wasn't, the financial forum was ARPA, RAC and ARPA was completely separate.
That's the same thing you had, Jeffrey?
And one other thing is it says Chair Ed Ross called the meeting, it should be called the meeting to order at 7:03.
Oh, yeah, page 1, right at the top.
Stylistically, I call. Yeah, that sounds good.
You're not limited by.
Yes, tense, I don't obey by tense anyways, so, but yeah.
That's like what little kids say, I call backseat.
I call backseats, exactly. I call this meeting to order. Watch me, Jeffrey, next meeting, that's what's gonna happen.
You know what he's gonna do.
No, that sounds good. You got those, Jackie?
Sure do.
Gotcha. Excellent.
Are we all cool just calling those friendly amendments? They seem very friendly.
Very
Even
friendly.
these minutes have the correction of previous minutes as part of the meeting.
Yeah, I didn't really need to be trying to consider that.
We'll get
correct.
recursive.
I knew who to call on, Jeffrey. I knew who to call on if we were talking about minutes. All right, cool. I'll take an amendment, a motion on.
So we had the motion, we just-
Oh, yes, we can vote. Sorry.
Chair needs to call it.
Yeah, literally.
Count votes.
Mark,
Yes.
Joe McDonough,
Yes.
Joe Kernahan.
Joe Carnahan,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes,
Jean,
Yes.
Emily. Jeffrey,
Yes.
Ed, yes, that's 8-0.
sound of the vacuums
I was
is a
gonna say
hint.
the vacuum.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a real get out.
And then, any other business?
Oh.
No other business?
Do we adjourn?
Emily moved to adjourn and I yelled second.
Who's gonna second it?
You have to vote.
So, yeah, Jackie, that was Emily that did that motion, and Joe that seconded. And the vote, Mark,
Yes.
Joe McDonough,
Yes.
Joe Carnahan,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
and Ed, yes, 9-0, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. 1-0. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's still quicker than that.
I'm like, I'm done.